He turned 60 over the weekend, but he's been a cranky old man for over 30 years. Adam Carolla.
Yeah, get it on. Got to get on a choice, but to get it on mandate, get it on. Great Kinnear in studio. I'm a big fan. Thanks for coming in. Projects. We'll get into Sight, the movie with Angel Studios. Good guys over there making a lot of waves. I've been to their facility in Provo. And
I have not been there.
It's impressive, man.
Yeah.
It's really nice to see disruptors.
Yes.
They call them.
They are.
They are. They're making a lot of big movies with, their operation is not a big studio operation. It's real sort of ma and pa, but they're getting a lot of traction.
Yeah.
And they showed me the trailer for Sight a few weeks ago when I had lunch or dinner with those guys, and it looks really good.
Yeah, cool.
So the Sight, it's a true story, right?
Yeah, true story.
About?
Well, it's a true story about a doctor, Dr. Ming Wang. It's a Asian American immigrant story. He grew up in China during the Cultural Revolution, which was an incredibly, insanely disruptive. You talk about disruptive time. And he survived that. There were obviously a lot of casualties. A lot of kids were shipped off to camps. It was a really crazy time. And he survived that period of time because he was proficient in an instrument. What's the name of the instrument? I can't really pronounce it. It's kind of a cross between an oboe and a husong or something like that, and he was really quite gifted in it, and it kind of kept him alive in a way, and he ultimately immigrated to the United States, faced a lot of adversity and racism, and with literally a few dollars in his pocket, working multiple jobs, he got a degree out of Harvard and MIT. I know, which is the college you and I did not go to.
No, those are the two I would have most been likely. I was voted in my yearbook at North Hollywood High least likely to attend Harvard and MIT.
Is that true?
No, I was unspoken.
It's implied, yeah.
I got class clown, technically.
Yeah.
But what they meant was least likely.
That would have been very creative of them to say, this is where this guy's definitely not going.
Well, look, I don't want to tell the yearbook committee how to run their business, but if you're going to have winners, you need losers, too. You know what I mean? And,
hallelujah,
and
friend.
you've got to motivate the next class who comes
right.
in there and may be shamed and is getting the mantle of least likely to attend Harvard or MIT. So maybe it should be something.
Well, listen, the clowns are valuable too. Don't sell yourself short. I mean,
listen, I've converted that title into literally millions of dollars. So I can't complain.
I'm sitting in the studios. I made it past the barbed wire fence to get in here, and it actually is I'm really impressed by this.
Thanks. Yeah. It's just a warehouse. Everyone should get a warehouse.
No, but it's just so cool. This seems like such a great place to go to do your work. It's like a nice group of people. You come here. It feels like a safe haven.
Yeah, it's a blessing, like many blessings, like health or having two arms and two legs that you sort of take for granted on a daily basis. No one wakes up and feels their legs and goes, "Oh, thank you for another day of mobility."
Well, I'm that guy who likes to pop in and tell you, "Hey, man, you got arms and legs."
Yeah, that's why we invited you out. I want you to confirm that I had function of my legs and arms. No, it's true, and we're all guilty of it. And the happier people are the ones that take a little more stock in these things, and really. My greatest claim to fame was inspiring a couple of people who talk about it. I didn't put words in their mouth, but both Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson both came in here and they sort of looked around and they went, "Oh, you get to work in your space, around your cars, around your stuff, and go to work every day where you want to go to work instead of, the 11th floor of the corporate whatever, walking past the cubicles and everyone who doesn't like you." And they both sort of went, I think that's a good direction to go. years ago. But,
Really?
But they both cite that as, inspirational.
So I was an early visit away from having my life changed and better off than
if you'd popped your head in here 7 years ago, your life would have taken a very different trajectory.
I'm out there slogging around in corporate entertainment.
Yes. Speaking of that, excellent in Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Oh, thank you.
That was a tour de force, and I wonder. I'm just having this thought in real time, but Larry David famously gives beats, and the scripts are 4 pages long or something. But your job as the DA in Fulton County or wherever you were, it's a lot of verbiage, a lot of talk. You're not a lawyer, I guess. You can't really just go wing it like you could with Vince Vaughn if you were arguing over selling a piece of memorabilia or something, where you could wing it, so how much your stuff did you wing?
There was Jeff Schaefer, who's a wonderful writer director on that show. They had. I was like, well, is this going to be? I've known Larry for a long time, and there were always a couple of times where I might have done the show and just schedule or whatever never worked out, and then this reared itself. How about the finale? And I was like, wow, courtside seats to the big finale.
Literally.
So yeah, it was really cool to do. And it was clear that, because I'm kind of socking him away, that it was less of the usual Curb riff where you're improvising as you go. And I had like kind of some level of specifics that I'm kind of laying out as I'm frying him, and which was fine, and it was really fun, and I have to tell you that is it was everything I could have hoped. I mean, you had Jerry there, you had all of the stars of the show, and all of the famous performances, the kind of iconic performances through the years, because so many of them are coming on to kind of roast Larry. So it was a great environment, really fun to do, and we will miss Curb Your Enthusiasm, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, there's there's a handful of shows you miss.
Yeah,
and Sopranos, Talk Soup.
Oh boy,
Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Look at that.
There's really only three or four.
Is this guy a pro or what?
Miss.
Seamless.
Yeah.
Jeez Louise, he just slipped in the old TS.
That's right. That had to be quite a break back in the day.
It was. You mean a break in terms of an opportunity?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of exposure.
Yeah.
On a nightly basis.
It was. I would say that more so than I realized. I was there kind of when we started. That Channel E had just begun, and they, were doing. The idea was to show, highlights of the daytime talk shows. 10 or 11 talk shows a day, and honestly, I had hosted some entertainment shows and was kicking around LA for a few years, and actually before E was called Movie Time, which is where I worked for a few years, and then got fired with all the other hosts. So I had been to this place, and going back was a little bit like, I don't know. But I ultimately I did, and really we didn't have kind of a format for what we were going to do. It was just we kind of let the clips lead the way. It was a great group that I worked with, and pretty soon you were realizing this. I think E originally was thinking this would be a serious look at daytime television, and it very quickly turned into, oh my God, this is what's happening out there. And I think that was the success of the show, because I don't think people realized. What Richard Bay was hatching every day at 3:00.
But then a difficult, I would say, transition, not for you, but I think most people into serious acting roles, because Hollywood sort of likes you where you are. They go, you're the guy from this, and now we can do another Talk Soup type thing over here, but we're not going to talk about serious. You're not going to play Bob Crane in a serious movie.
Well, I think that is, by the way, much more open to that now. I mean, I'm
Yes,
like so
now.
amazed now. Like people
now,
are
yes.
like, "Oh, sure, I'll go sell toilet paper, and then I'll go get an Oscar for my." You know, it's
You
like I
wouldn't-
can't keep up with the lines.
Yes, you couldn't do a commercial in the United States if you're a serious actor.
That's right.
You do them in Japan
That's
or
right.
whatever it was.
Yeah.
And there's all sorts of probably funny footage of, Sylvester Stallone from '86,
Yeah.
in Tokyo selling toilet paper. But
And you wouldn't do television
No.
if you were a film actor. You under no circumstances you forbidden to do any kind
Yes.
of television work. So listen, it really was crazy. I mean, I had Sidney Pollack had seen me on Talk Soup and brought me in to talk to him. And Sidney Pollack's from a small town in Indiana. I'm from a small town in Indiana. I think it was literally that was the kind of his interest
what was
in
the
that.
project?
It was Sabrina.
Oh, Sabrina.
So I was playing
yeah.
Harrison Ford's little
Yeah.
brother. That was the first movie I ever did, and it was. So I met with him a few times. He said, "Listen, we're just going to read the scene, you and I." He was playing Sabrina. That was weird.
Yeah.
And we.
I laugh because every single time you read with a casting director, I put it in my movie Road Hard. It's a gay guy, and he's reading the part of your love interest, who's a woman, and he's like, "Oh, you're really working out. You look good in that shirt. Well, you look pretty good too." And it's like it's a gay guy off camera, and I'm always yelling, "Can you just get the right sex even for this?" Because it's I got a good imagination, but this is tough.
It
It's a
is an
stretch.
additional speed bump in your
Yes.
your acting prowess if you can make it past a completely cast person working opposite you. But Sidney Pollack was a great actor. So if anybody could play Sabrina, Sidney Pollack
It's been
could
said
nail
many
it.
times
I
on
know,
many a
I know,
podcast, but
I know.
it bears repeating.
I
is
know.
what we're
I mean,
saying.
people forget.
That's why we have to remind them. Yes.
But seriously, he really was him and Tootsie is just like so incredible, and he was always such a great sort of actor's actor, and so in a lot of ways, it was a great guy for me to be lucky enough to get to work with right out of the gate.
To me, autofocus was I don't know why I was so enthralled with that film, that Bob Crane story. It's a crazy story.
Yeah.
I don't know if you got nominated for that, but you should have.
I won the Oscar for that.
No,
you're right. Sorry, go ahead.
That I don't do research, but even that,
I thought I was just going to see how far I could take it, and he shut me down fast.
You got enough chops that I made a face.
There was a face there for a moment where I was like, "Hey, I think he's going to go for this."
But it was a really good movie. It's a really interesting movie, and the whole Bob Crane story is just it's just nuts.
Yeah,
and the fact that they finally found the guy who killed him, and then 20 years later, and then he went to jail and died in jail.
Yeah.
Like there was no justice for Bob Crane, but it was a crazy story, and he really did become Bob Crane, who was Hogan's Heroes and Disney movies, and a bizarre story about him being kind of the face of all these kooky kids, centric Disney movies that were cranking out in the 60s. And now rumors of this guy having like a sex addiction and doing all this crazy stuff. And Disney was like, Bob Crane did radio, back in the day.
Yeah, he did. He was kind of the Ryan Seacrest of his time, back when, I guess Ryan Seacrest is a bad poll.
No, it's not. It's like, affable.
Yeah.
And everyone sort of liked him and had this sort of great personality.
All Americana kind of guy,
Right.
who was a conservative sort of Reagan fella that ultimately, you're right, had this, it was a sexual addiction. I mean, Paul Schrader directed the film and, sat me and Willem Dafoe down and was like, opened the old trunk up of Bob Crane paraphernalia. I'm talking movies and video and photographs. I mean, the level of documentation. It was a real passion. It was an obsession, and I think he saw it completely soul and separate from his regular life. He was a married guy with kids, and was excellent. Obviously, I thought Paul did a really nice job with the movie, and it kind of walks a bunch of crazy lines. I heard about Bob Crane when I was in high school. I went to high school in Greece when I was a kid, and I was over there, and some buddy of mine was like, "Well, you heard about Bob Crane, Hogan's Heroes guy," and I was like, "Hogan's Heroes? What?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, he got killed in a hotel room. He was bludgeoned to death." That was a story. I mean, it was like a big deal when it kind of went down, and so it kind of had always been in the back of my mind, and I got brought this script by Larry Karaszewski and Scott Alexander, who are great. They did Ed Wood, a lot of great productions, and they had brought the script to me. Amazing story, by the way, true story. Their writing partner team, and they're writing one day, and if they were here, I would have them correct anything I'm screwing up. But doorbell rings, their Jerry's Deli delivery shows up, and they get their pastrami sandwich, and the kid says, "Hey, you guys are writers, right?" And they're like, "Yeah." He's like, "I've actually written a script about Bob Crane," and they were like, "Really? You got any mustard to go with it? Thanks." And they're like, "What's it about?" And he pitches them on the doorstep, and ultimately goes to the back of his Carolla. And pulls out a script from that he's written, a spec, and they ended up optioning it, getting it to Paul Schrader, and that's how that movie got made. I just always find that amazing.
Yeah, it's a really good movie. It's interesting. Willem Dafoe's is creepy. He's a character comes, and he sort of embodied that part. And
hey, Big Daddy.
Yeah, and it was sort of pre-technology, having a video camera. It's like you and Elvis and Nixon were like the only people that had a video camera in 1972 or whatever.
That's right.
Whatever it was, and they would go to these local bars and coax all these women back, and it's just a crazed story.
And so much of it was about the documentation, which is like what's, I guess, tragic about it is, I often wonder, like a guy like that, what would you do in this day and age if you have that sort of thing? Because it's all available to you all the time.
I predict he would have become a Jehovah's Witness. Like, it would be so overwhelming. Like when a guy just drinks so hard for so many years that he says, "I don't touch this stuff anymore." So Bob Crane would be a religious leader today.
Cult leader.
Also, I've often said the addiction, or whatever we want to call it, because it's hard because you're dealing with criminal behavior in often cases, you know what I mean? But if you have an addiction for women or pornography or just betting strangers, the casting sofa or couch or whatever it is, it'll destroy you. I mean, it's no different than drugs or gambling or something. I mean, if you want to think about all the guys that have been undone.
Yeah.
By just, it's a nature. You know what I mean? Like, you've been married for a long time, Guys have a nature. Some of them, they hit the road. They want to bang everything on the road. I know guys that they won't travel to a place where they can't get a rub and tuck.
Right.
And Kinnear told me that off the air, but I want to share it with you today. I know a guy. No, it's like, but it becomes consuming, and then you kind of realize you dodged a bullet.
Yeah.
Like, I can get on an airplane, go to a town, do a few shows, and come back and not have to nail the waitress at the club or the theater because I'm not compelled to.
So you say.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And it is true. I mean, like, I used to have kind of this attitude. I don't remember when one of those, it was probably on like Talk Soup or something. Jerry Springer had somebody on who's like, "I've got a sex addiction. I like to have sex with women." And I was a little like, really? And yeah, so I was a little more suspect of it. But I think what you're saying and time and proves this out. as you go along that ultimately addiction, regardless of what it is,
Yeah.
is a full and complete consuming thing, all of them. And, the exotic ones like, sex or I think gambling's kind of odd. I don't understand gambling.
I think gambling will undo you faster than heroin.
Probably anything,
or,
yeah.
There's people that go like, well, I had a Vicodin addiction. I took 50 Vicodin a day, but I was able to keep my job at the law firm I kept it together for like 8 years. And then eventually, gambling is fast.
Yep.
And you lose fast, and then you borrow more, and then you get into trouble with the people you got the money from.
Yeah.
But I mean, you think about a Bill Cosby or a Harvey Weinstein or, Epstein or these guys or whoever, whatever information Epstein gathered on whomever, and like what the peril is for them. Like, people assume Epstein knew a few things and had the goods on. It's pretty life-altering. Like, Bill Cosby's most beloved American.
Yeah.
Like, literally, he wasn't like the most beloved black American or even comedian. He was just pretty much beloved. And Harvey Weinstein was the toast of the town for years and years and years. I mean, the life that guy had. Or even Roman Polanski, as the exile to France, like it's just
But I don't know. I don't know where the line meets up from addiction. You mentioned like Harvey or Epstein or I don't know, even Cosby. Where the line of hey, I'm an addiction. I have a problem. I'm a victim of something, of a monkey on my back, versus just deviant behavior, and somebody who's like, I know exactly what I'm doing, and you're always, we are in a society where there's always a kind of there's always a little shade offered by the helping hand
now P. Diddy and let's not forget oh God, what's his name? Like to pee on everybody.
R. Kelly.
R. Kelly is in jail now. I mean, what
I
I'm
honestly
saying
didn't know R. Kelly liked to pee on everybody. I didn't know that was a thing.
Oh, yeah. Should see me in high school, man.
Wow.
I peed on
You were a big
everybody.
peer? Yeah.
A big.
Yeah.
It was a thing. We didn't have video games. We had to entertain ourselves. But no, what I'm saying is I'm not trying to garner sympathy for these people.
No, I know you're not.
And or make excuses for them. I'm just saying if you have that impulse, like if you're just like, I want to have sex with kids, I do not want adult females or males, or I want to pee on people, or I want to whatever drug people and have sex. That impulse is powerful. It's in you, and it'll completely undo you. And you'll just end up rotting in prison and dying a poor person, and whatever status you had in our society will completely gone.
I'm doing right now. I'm working on a show up in Vancouver. I did the show a couple years ago with Dennis Lehane, the incredible writer, Mystic River, and so many great books. Was the showrunner for a show called Blackbird, and it was a true story, serial killer story, and a lot of the same group, including Taron Egerton, who played Jimmy Keenan, that were up there, and making another true crime story that is about it's about arson and fire, and took place in the 80s when all of these fires were taking place in Southern California. And it's a story specifically about one guy. And again, it's kind of in that exotic world where you think of, well, addiction has to be drugs or booze. No. Lighting fires is a weird little strange world that is not really that explored, and I think it's not explored in entertainment very often or successfully. It's hard to do. Same for gambling, same for sex, because I think for the vast majority of the audience, they're like, how do I get into this? For some reason, we're able to tap in emotionally, mentally to a person who has a drug or alcohol related, addiction. But when you get off on the reservation into some of these others, I think they have a harder time.
Yeah, I agree. And you're right to bring up being a serial killer. That'll undo you.
Yeah, well.
And being an arsonist will
undo
you.
Somebody.
Yeah. And eventually we'll get around to you. So, but no, I think with the other things, such as addiction. You know, you go, wow, man, that guy's got a problem with the booger sugar. And then you go, like, have you ever done Coke? You go, yeah, I've tried it. It's like, is it good? Yeah, it's good. Like, I get it. He just has a problem with it. But it's good. Or people have eating disorders. Right. You know what I mean? It's like, who doesn't like a fucking large pizza? You know what I mean? I do. Okay, but I don't eat it at 8 a.m. and then throw it back up again. Yeah, but they do. Or booze. You know, you go, well, who doesn't like to crack a cold one and watch the big game? You know, I like it. Everyone likes it. You know, so that you have, like, you're not halfway there, but you got one foot in the pool of like, I get it. People like booze. He just likes it too much. You know, he's drinking on weekdays in the morning. But you're kind of there. Arson, no one ever goes, I start small fires. Yeah, I mean, you know, but in parking lots and stuff. Issue. I don't burn down commercial buildings. But I'll get some. I got some kindling on me.
Yes.
You need a road flare? No, I'm just, look, I won't take a gallon of gas, and you know, but I'll, you know, spoonful, start a small fire. Like, yeah, okay, we all dig it. Like, you don't have that. You don't really have that with the pedophilia and stuff. Like, you know, I'm not going to be.
You're saying there's a chasm between the
Anytime
things.
there's a chasm where you just go, I don't understand 1/10 of this.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
You don't.
One, as a society. I speak for society.
I know you do.
That's what I'm saying. If booze, you can't really judge. I mean, it's hard to judge because you go, well, shit, I tied one on last night, you know, because it was my whatever party, you know? And so you kind of go, all right, like you're sympathetic food, it's that way. Even gambling, you kind of go like,
I got a lottery ticket, you know, I picked one up during the $1 billion run.
Play a little 21 when I'm in Vegas. You know, that, but arson, pedophilia, that all feels just... serial killing, it all just feels completely insane.
Yeah, you can't just dabble in it.
Can't dabble in serial killing.
Yeah. I think you're right. And I think we've solved this.
You and I?
I feel like we've solved this.
Just now. Yeah.
All right. Well, now to an uncomfortable subject.
Okay. Yeah,
Chris knows what it is. Everyone in the building's uncomfortable.
I mean, it is quite the birthday gift that you are here for Adam.
Yes.
When is your birthday?
It was yesterday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Wow, and I got something for you.
Oh, you do?
Look at this. My nephew out of Asheville. Are you a pickleball player?
Who doesn't play pickleball?
You like to dabble in pickleball. If you're not there already at 60, you're on your way, pal.
I'm on my way. Yeah.
So here it is. It's an Ethos Scoria. They are made out of Asheville, North Carolina, designed with the best hypercarbon that you can imagine. It's got a beautiful... I mean, if the audience could see this right now, they would be floored. It's a gorgeous, and it's got a little Greek writing here too. Exeriselenika.
Adam. I didn't go to high school.
Puisse Americaniki presbyter. No, he doesn't speak Greek.
I was
folks.
in
That's
North Hollywood when I heard Bob Crane died. not on feet in the Mediterranean, enjoying the azure seas.
So, Adam Carolla, I now present you with a my nephew's Ethos Scoria paddle.
And it just
pickleball,
it only comes in pink, or
I think for you we put it in pink because it's a judge of character, and we thought that would be
the action feels amazing. Now, listen, I don't know a ton about pickleball, but. Do I take it out of the cellophane?
You will. You'll remove the rubber band holding the cellophane.
I don't want them to think a novice has shown up on the court. So I will definitely take it out of the cellophane.
I think the packaging is the next phase that he's working on right now. But
it's got good balance.
It does have good balance. It's nice. And you turned 60. Wow. Welcome.
I think we're the same age.
Yeah, welcome to. Was that the uncomfortable portion that was in the building?
Because that's not even close.
I mean, if that's not it, that's right up on the red line as far as I'm concerned.
It's Little Miss Sunshine.
Oh boy.
Now, I think it's a good film.
Okay, well, a lot of people think it's better than good, but go ahead.
Oh boy, we're off to a run. No, I thought it was very good, and I've watched it multiple times. But I do cite it as the beginning of the downfall of this nation.
Oh.
Now look, you're gun for hire. I'm not blaming you.
No, I'll take the bullet. Go ahead.
Your character in this movie was what dads used to be and how dads probably should be. And you became this sort of heel of the movie, the butt of the joke, except for all you were talking about was sort of working hard and eating right and so on and so forth. Like when you had that famous diner scene,
right,
and your daughter's wanting to eat ice cream for breakfast, a la mode, and you're sort of going, hey, you're going to a competition and you eat a bunch of ice cream, you're going to put some weight on, and everyone at the table attacked you.
Right. What did
and I
I
was
do
like,
wrong?
what? That's what dads are supposed to do. And then I realized that's sort of where we're at now.
Wow.
And that's why the wheels have come off the wagon, and we're all going to have to move to Florida or Texas.
I am the poster child for.
It was the beginning of the end. I'm not
The
saying
downfall of
it was the downfall of society. That's it. Other than that, it was a cute film. You know?
Damn, I had not heard that take before, and yet, as you say it, there is an element of that I agree with.
Well, your character was saying, look, I don't think it'd be a good idea to talk about suicide attempts at the dinner table with an 8-year-old.
Right.
And everyone was screaming at you like, what is this heresy?
Yeah.
And you were like, she's 8, you know? Like maybe she doesn't want to hear about her uncle's suicide attempt. And the same thing happened to you again at the diner.
Yeah.
But in general, you were the dad who did the right thing, who worked hard, who was ambitious, maybe overly so, had a plan, and everyone rolled their eyes every time you said something. And I was like, this guy is doing what dads are supposed to do.
Can we remove the Forrest Gump picture for those watching at home right now? I think we've got the idea. Go ahead.
Yeah. So there were many of those scenes. Like Dano wanted to be a fighter jock, but he wouldn't speak.
That's right.
I was like, this kid's a mess.
Yeah.
This kid's not who you want in F-18. This kid's deep psychological problems. And we're rooting for all you got the uncle, you got the grandpa, your dad's a
Snorting,
junkie, your dad's a sex-addicted junkie, and we're rooting for him. We're rooting for all these failed people who have serious disorders, but somehow you are meant to be
the villain
in this thing. And I don't think anyone else saw it that way.
No.
They cheered it on.
Yes.
But I was looking at it like, hey, if I was one of the parents of the kids who learned to play the violin or spin a baton or do a hula dance or something, I would be pissed off if the chubby chick who ate ice cream for breakfast got up there and started shaking her moneymaker and getting the applause. That's where I was.
Well, I'll tell you, it was a really fun movie to do, and I was infused with. I knew what the job was, of course, but I think I probably deep in my psyche, I think you're onto something, and I probably felt compelled to. I mean, I push as best as I can. I've got the dialogue that I have, but I certainly make Richard Hoover's case as best as I can that the kid shouldn't be eating ice cream, that my father shouldn't be snorting Coke, and that, by the way, that was not my original father in the script. Funny enough,
Alan Arkin?
Alan Arkin.
Who won the Academy Award for supporting actor.
That's correct. Yes. And I actually, the week before we started shooting, I went to Jonathan Dayton, Valerie Ferris, our directors, and I said, guys, we got a big problem. Alan was my stepfather. No, I'm sorry. I was Olive's stepfather, making Alan her step grandfather. And I was like, we were all just rehashing this at a screening, a few months ago, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. This cannot be. I can't make the case that be as strong-willed and as forceful in my hand with trying to change all of this. If I was the stepfather, it felt like I had to be the father. Direct connection, especially telling her not to eat ice cream.
So the original script was stepdad.
And step-grandfather in the room with her practicing dance moves. How bizarre is that? It turned it into like a snuff film.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Bob Crane would have been proud.
Very proud. So listen, we're uncovering a lot here.
So you told them.
There's ever a time for a commercial break for your audience. My God.
You told them I should be the biological dad.
Yes.
And Arkin will be the biological grandfather.
Correct. I wrote a mission statement. I literally wrote him it was like my Tom Cruise, mission statement where it was like a 6-page email that I had at midnight where I was like, this is insane. And I however you craft that idea for 6 pages, and I've looked for the email, I can't find it. That is what I put out, and they were actually super cool and responsive to it, and we ended up changing that. But I think it would have maybe in a way it would have helped what you're bothered by.
Well, I get what they were doing. They made a choice to make you the stepdad because you were kind of fish out of water.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have been in this family, but you would have entered it as an adult and had your own set of values, right? So that part made sense, but bringing Arkin in as step-grandpa would have screwed it up. And if I was making the pitch to them, I would go, I get why I'm the stepdad, but you understand that comes with some baggage, named Alan Arkin, who's the step-grandpa now, and now we got 2 steps.
But we couldn't, it was with a week to shoot, we couldn't turn him into just her grandfather because his dying affects Richard so much and the whole dynamic and
I think
stuff.
you made the right choice.
Well, you're worrying me. I mean, you got me feeling like maybe I screwed this thing up.
No, just the beginning of the fall.
It only made $250 million on a $7 million budget. I don't know.
Not responsible for propelling the fall of this nation, but just the very beginning.
Just tipping the scales.
Well, your character was doing the right thing. He was saying, don't eat ice cream for breakfast.
A lot of people would talk about autofocus and say that I started the downfall of America, but you're now telling me it's not that movie that you destroyed America with. It's this movie. It's just amazing.
It's not the backyard porn industry, which is now a multi-billion-dollar industry. It was more to me that you were actually saying all the right. The reason I was responding to it is because we're now living in a day where I say normal things as a dad, and everyone looks at me and goes, "What are you? Well, you can't say that." I'm like, well, I'm just saying diet and exercise, man. And they go, "You can't shame your son into what?" And I'm like, I'm just talking about stuff that works. I'm just talking about like basic stuff. It's been around for several thousand years.
It might be your delivery. They said at the top of the show you're cranky.
Delivery.
They literally announce you as cranky. So
I've had people say it's how you say it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you should get over that.
Yeah.
Which is strike 2.
Yeah.
But the movie, I like that you had to bump start your car the whole time because I've done a lot of bump starting. Many a VW wagon and my mom had a VW Squareback, which is station wagon. I had a
VW in college.
First truck I ever bought had like a bad starter, and I used to have to bump start it like every single day.
Right.
So that I do commend.
That really related to his character.
I related to your character as you bump started that thing.
I mean, that was kind of genius in the script.
Was. No, it's genius if you take a small thing and turn it into a through line.
Right. And that through line is so nicely weaved in and it even follows. I mean, and there's a great scene where they've realized they forgot Olive. They can't stop the car.
Yes.
They come back and keep it moving and pull her in.
And I heard you did a lot of the driving in the movie.
I did virtually all of the drive. It's the most. I've said it's the most dangerous movie ever made in show business. We just basically co-opt. I don't know, any highway or street. As far as I know, there was never a cop or a motorcycle around.
It wasn't closed off or anything.
No.
You're running and gunning, as they call it.
Yeah, I mean, like if we were shooting in the gas station and picking her up, I mean, that was obviously choreographed. But, I mean, a lot of that highway stuff where we were driving and screaming about getting to the show was just like, here's a camera. Why don't you guys just freak out? And, so I was driving the car, and nobody was wearing seatbelts in this I don't know what year. Yeah, 68.
71, I don't know. And you had to do some stunt driving on a moped, too.
Oh, yeah. When I saw the movie recently, I forgot. When I show up, I'm driving that motorcycle, and I show up to find my boss, I'm trying to get this book deal out of, and the boss is played by Bryan Cranston.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so I show up and I call him and he's kind of like putting me off and he finally is face to face with me. And I didn't know Bryan before, and I remember I'm standing there, I've got these shorts that look like, they make dockers look like, like a Gucci design costume.
Like Lenny Kravitz.
These were the worst. I mean, the costumer just could not have humiliated my character anymore by putting him in a worse pair of shorts or shirt.
Dopey Dad.
And Dopey Dad. And I remember, and I got the little coiffed hair, and Cranston being like, "Wow, you are really taking a chance." And I was like, no, I'm not. I'm fine. This is cool. By the way, little known fact, not only Walter White, but you also had the cop that pulled me over, which is Dean Norris, who was also from the University of Breaking Bad. So that show came shortly after.
The cop that got into the porn stash.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. One quick little beef with the costumer.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. This is not on you.
Oh, thank God.
Steve.
It's like a roast.
Steve Carell.
Yeah.
He's got the bandages around his wrist the whole time, right?
Yes.
He's the only one wearing a long sleeve shirt, which is fine.
Yeah.
But he's embarrassed about these cuffs with these bandages from the suicide attempt when he runs into his old lover at the convenience store. Why does he have his long sleeve shirt cuffed up so we can see the bandages? Why not just roll them down and then the world would not know about your suicide attempt?
Well, doesn't that happen in a convenience store when he's buying like little boy blue, porn for himself? Yes. And I would argue that he was just kind of caught off guard when his boyfriend of the pro scholar shows up, and it throws him a little bit.
All right.
So,
okay. I'll buy that.
You cranky.
But I'm just saying.
Cranky.
You don't want people to see your C-section scar. Put on a shirt. That's all, ladies.
It's not.
Don't wear a
two-piece.
Idea. That's no.
Listen, if you want to get into costuming, I know the people.
I'd like to speak to them off the air.
No?
I got a beef with your shorts and now the long sleeve shirt. So for you, you're shooting in, you say Vancouver, no better town to hang out in than Vancouver.
Great.
It's great.
It's
the best, right?
I've shot there a few times, and it's very, I've been there in like the dead of winter, and it's not the greatest town to be in. But right now, like summer, May, June, July, all these months, there's nothing like it. It's just fantastic. Beautiful, great food, and really, really a lovely place.
I think Jimmy Kimmel's bachelor party was in Vancouver.
It was.
It's the
really?
best. Yeah, if it's a bachelor party
Why would he have
destination.
it? Would he have it there?
Why?
Yeah.
He like Vancouver. Oh, this place is lousy with whores. I mean, that's why you're shooting there. Let's be honest, Bob.
What'd you call you, Bob?
No, I'm serious. Why? No, it just seems odd to go all the way to Vancouver because I'm on this flight back and forth a lot. I'm like, who goes up to Vancouver for a bachelor party?
Rich guy move, I think.
Okay.
Good food.
Okay.
Places open late.
It's fun. Yeah, it's a fun
like
town.
Lots of fun.
Yeah, it is.
As I recall, I've been there a few times, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, if there's a lot of places you could shoot. That's definitely top.
Yeah, for sure.
Near the top of the list.
Is that why you have the mustache?
Yes, it is.
Oh, you grow a healthy mustache.
Thank you very much. Started a little thin, had to supplement it for after I did Curb. I came in with a half-grown mustache, and then they had to kind of fill it in, and now it's all me. What do you guys think of the mustache? And you can be honest. By the way, you have big opinions on things. Tell me what you think, and be honest.
I'm jealous of a mustache.
Are you?
I love it.
Yeah.
Seriously?
I don't feel like I can pull it off. I love a guy with a mustache. I like that they're coming back. It feels throwbacky to me, but I see guys. If you're a good-looking guy, I think you can pull a mustache off. And you got a good stash. You got the bones for it. You got the frames.
All right.
I
feel like the interview's turning around now.
It's coming around. I feel bad.
Can't go lower.
Yeah, nobody looks better with a mustache. Yeah, I should try one once. I've never
stash?
tried.
Well, why would you? Do you think you can't grow one?
No, I could grow one. Yeah, I could grow one fast.
You would look like you were like in a high school yearbook photo
It
if
would
you
be
grew a
weird.
mustache.
I'm
I don't know if that's a good move.
I'm trying a mustache.
Are you? All right.
I'll start later today.
You know what's better is you're starting now, right? It's already
yeah, but
started.
I'd really like to kind of focus on the interview, if you don't mind. I don't tell you how to do your job.
You could start with a beard or a goatee or something, and then you just kind of lose it, so you have a little bit more girth there.
I've done the beard. I've done the beard before.
Oh boy, is that you?
But it's itchy. It's too itchy for me because I have a very puby type
That
beard.
is interesting. Yes, you do.
And I have a puby beard. And it's very itchy. It's like wearing a hair shirt. It's a scratch in my face all the time. But I do have a predominant mustache because the mustache on my upper lip is black and the rest is gone gray. And also, I have these vague memories of when I was younger. And I'd visit my grandfather, who was very old at the time, and his seeing was gone. And he would always say to me, when I walked in, he was a mustache guy.
Yeah.
And he'd go, oh, he was a Hungarian guy. He'd go, Cookie, you're growing a mustache. And I'd go, no, I just shaved 2 days ago, but the mustache comes back first or more prominently.
Sure.
So to a guy with bad eyesight, through the cheesecloth of his lens,
Yes.
I look like a guy who's growing a mustache, but it's all going at the same time. But
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wait a minute. When I was Mr. T, I had a mustache and a beard. I went as Mr. T for Halloween in
You did?
83 or something. Right. Yeah, back when blackface was,
Right.
less frowned upon. Right. You know what I mean?
How's that played out for you? Okay.
History's not been kind. I would ask that whether it was me playing Mr. T or Kimmel playing Oprah, we were just playing roles.
Okay. There you go. There you go.
Our roles from back in the.
Who's sitting next to you?
My buddy Ray, who you want to talk about pot committed. I'm sitting there at my friend Todd's house because he's the only one who had a wall trimmer. So he's gonna give me the Mr. T haircut.
Yes.
And then my buddy Ray just shows up, and he goes, "What are you guys doing?" And he goes, "Well, I'm shaving Adam's head for Halloween, so I'm going as Mr. T." And then Ray goes, "Oh, I don't have an outfit for Halloween.
Wow.
I'll go as a Hare Krishna." And he goes, "All right, I'll shave your head and leave a ponytail."
Whoa.
Spur of the moment.
Yeah.
Like that. And it was so weird that even when we went out during Halloween, people thought he was a Hare Krishna because they didn't know anyone else who would shave their head for one night.
Does he still have hair?
Yeah.
Because he's a good bald guy. If he was, I often think, like, how would I be if I didn't have this thick, luxurious, sort of kind of carpet of hair.
Yeah.
And I think my kids say that my forehead's too big, so I have that to concern myself with. But if you think of the skull and just the balance of his face, it
Great
kind
ratio.
of
Yeah, he would work nicely as a bald-headed man.
yeah.
Yeah.
Too bad.
All I remember is I was about 19, and I was living in the garage at my dad's house in North Hollywood, and my stepmom really wanted me to move out of the garage, and I think my dad really wanted me to get a job and move out because I wasn't doing anything.
Right.
And the economy was shit. It was like 1983. It was a horrible economy. There were no jobs. Now we have a shit economy and tons of jobs. Back then it was shit economy and zero jobs.
Right.
I couldn't get a job at a liquor store like when I was 19. And I just got done with Halloween where I did the full Mr. T with the mohawk and the sideburns and everything. And I wiped all the makeup off. I still had a little of it on probably. And I walked into the kitchen and my dad just looked at me and he went, "Oh, great. Now
If you thought it was hard to get a job
It
before.
was hard to get a job without blackface.
Oh, my
and
God.
a mohawk. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Oh, why did you? I thought you told me you worked construction.
I
though.
did.
You could always fall back on that.
I did. I could.
Were you good at it?
I was great at it. Yeah. I was a great carpenter.
So there's no problem.
Well, I was 19. I wasn't a carpenter yet.
I see.
See, I had no skills. I got
Right.
probably 2 months later, I got a phone call from my friend John, and he said, I'm working at this house in Silver Lake, and they need someone to pull ivy off the side of it and pull it up the hill and throw it in the dumpster, and they'll give you $50.
Did your hair grow back yet?
I shaved the whole thing at that point. I just buzzed. I got all the Mr. T off, the hair, everything else. And I showed up on the construction site and started pulling ivy, and I never went home. Like, I was like, I need this job. And they were like, it was just going to be one day. And they were like, come back tomorrow. And I just kept coming back for $7 an hour. And
You got your little money. They gave you cash or a check, or?
It was the worst of all worlds. It was a check where they took taxes out, but they didn't pay overtime or anything. So it was horrible.
I was in Greece, and one summer tarred roofs, which that was the roughest job I ever had. But they gave me a big. First of all, they paid you in drachma. You think you had problems?
Oh yeah.
And then, but it was like a shitboat of like drachma. I got like paid. It just seemed like because they were paying me. Like I think like $1 rate or something, because my friend's dad was building like this airport hangar, and that's where we were assigned.
You were hot mopping.
Hot mopping, that's right. That was the term I get. The Greeks called it
hot mopping.
Hot mopping.
That's right.
But yeah, it was construction's. It's
hard work.
Yeah, hard work.
No, I didn't want to do it, but I still did it for 12 years. Yeah.
I heard you one time saying that you saw Jay Leno across the street, while you were doing construction, and you were like, "I'm going to have those hours."
Yeah, his hours. Yeah. He didn't. It was the opposite of my hours. I had to get up at 6 a.m. and be somewhere and bust out stucco, and Leno didn't have to be anywhere until 8 that night.
It's nice.
And I was like, oh.
I don't even think I would have had I thought, it occurred to me, I thought that was smart of you to think that way. It's not something that would logically occur to somebody. Like I have kids, and you think you got to think, you got to be thinking, and like that was a smart. That was a smart thought. Era.
Yeah. So that's what happened with Little Miss Sunshine. No more thinking.
There you go.
Look. A lot of it is desperation. I don't think they don't put enough of an emphasis on a little desperation.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like,
God help you, should you have any desperation?
A little bit, yeah. Like, if
I don't know what I was going to do.
If my dad was a union guy and he worked for the studios, and when I walked out of high school, he got me a union gig with the Carpenters on the studio, and he was kind of a made man over there, and I started at $19.75 an hour instead of $7 an hour, and I had full benefits and golden time, and you get 2 weeks off for Christmas. Then I probably would have stayed there.
Yeah,
I would have been comfortable, but I didn't have any of that.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, this sucks, and I'm desperate, and there's only one other skill set I possess other than putting stucco on the side of Jay Leno's neighbor's house. And
what is that?
Sense of humor.
Oh, yeah, right. Comedy.
That's all I got. Yeah. I got that, and I got stucco.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, let's start getting into that.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can convert that into something. It took a little while.
Yeah.
But you must have had thoughts along those lines at some point.
I had, in high school, I acted, and I actually did a radio show, a little radio show while I was in Athens, which was kind of fun to do.
What's all the Greeks?
My dad was with the American. The Grecian formula comes from my father. Was with the. We were in D.C. and he got a diplomatic assignment to Beirut, Lebanon, in back in the 70s, and we went over to Beirut, and I was there for a short period of time, and a civil war began while I was there. So I've been through a civil war.
Wow.
People talk about civil war. I've been through one. But no, I mean, we were very isolated and left before that got really very gnarly, but certainly know people who remained behind, and it was very, very horrible. And they've had ups and downs in Beirut, which was a beautiful country.
It was a garden state for a while, right?
The Paris of the Middle East. I'm not sure I ever saw Paris, but it was quite lovely, and I have a great affinity for the short time we were there. got evacuated to Greece, and he ended up getting reassigned. So we were in Greece for the next five years. And while I was there, I went to high school, and there was an Air Force base down in Glyfada, down near the airport where you land if you've ever gone into Athens. And I would go down there on a little bus and do my little radio show every Saturday. And that was my, spin some records, talk shit about the school. And that was my, I did that for an hour a day following Casey Kasem, which we had the broadcast of Casey Kasem.
Wow, in this top 40 countdown.
Hello and welcome back to American Top 40. I'm Casey Kasem, and I used to be able to do it so well, but
I never stop. If it comes on every once in a while on Sirius Satellite or whatever, 70s channel or whatever.
That's a crazy story. What happened to Casey Kasem, by the way?
Oh, I mean,
That's a Googler.
He could give Bob Crane a run for his money
For
in
sure.
the crazy nutty department after he died, and they had the second wife.
And the body is being
she wanted
trounced
his
around.
remains.
Yeah.
Yeah, that story's crazy.
So while I was there, yes, did a little radio show. So I guess I had some interest. Went to college, I kind of had a broadcast journalism degree, but I really didn't know. I didn't have any serious thought about, honestly, what I was going to do. I really didn't have a clear angle on that, and ended up in the Bay Area selling light bulbs and like PVC and electrical wire for a company that was building apartments, and that didn't feel like my sweet spot. But
You
did
sell
that.
PVC and ABS? Or
I don't think it was PVC. Actually, I think it was.
Was it black or
You know
white?
what I was doing? I was buying. I was buying primarily wire, copper wire. I was acquiring wire
Romex?
and
What gauge?
light bulbs. I don't know what gauge. I couldn't tell you. I would just get yelled at all day long because they'd be like, "This is not what we ordered," and I'd be like, "Well, of course it's not what you ordered. I don't know how to do this." So, but at any rate, so had a little bit of interest, but got a real, crazy break at this movie time place before, again, E was E. When I came out to LA, kicking around, knew a few people from high school in Greece, kind of living on couches and flop housing my way through here, and then I ended up, getting a shot to host that movie time
Had
gig.
to be a
which was
real
cool.
who's on first type of situation where it's like, this guy's an actor friend of mine. He's an actor. I met him in Greece. Oh, which production?
Yeah.
No, Greece. Yeah, I heard you.
Yeah.
Who played Olivia Newton-John's part? No. Listen to me.
Yeah.
Greece. I heard it. He was an actor in Greece. Now, what part did he play?
Yeah, that may have been out there. I don't know. I wasn't privy to those.
You ever think about stand-up? Because it seems like you'd have the chops for it, and you do comedy, and Talk Soup was, stand-up adjacent, I would kind of say.
Sit down comedy.
Yeah, but I guest hosted a time or two after
Yeah.
I think you went, or me and Dr. Drew did.
Did
or
you like
something.
doing that?
I had an issue with them.
Uh-oh.
I told them ice cream made you fat, but they wouldn't listen. No, I said they wanted me and Dr. Drew, I think, to guest host.
Yeah. That sounds weird already.
Yeah, circa 1998 or something. And so I said to them, "How's the show done?" And they said, "We load up the prompter and we scroll it and we have all the clips and it's all in the prompter." And I said, "I don't read very well cold prompter, and then also I'm going to be looking at Drew a lot. I'm going to be talking to Drew a lot because that's how we interact.
Yeah.
And Drew's going to be looking at me. So why don't you just put a few beats in the prompter, like this next one, guy gets his nuts bitten by a duck,
Absolutely.
And then we can punt a couple of jokes or a couple of beats in there, but I'm going to keep it conversational, and I'm going to talk to Drew, and it's not going to work if I just read the prompter. And don't do it. And I told him about 5 times, and then I showed up, and it was a full prompter, and I'd start getting into it, and then I'd talk to Drew, and then I'd come back, and I didn't know where I was on the prompter, and it was a total disaster. And at a certain point, about the 5th time, I said, you just got to get everything out of the prompter. Just put the beat with the next picture, the next clip, or whatever it is, and then we'll ad-lib it because we're good at it and Drew's good at it and that's the relationship we have. And it was lots of going round and round and round. And then at some point they did it my way. And I think it came out pretty good. And then they got angry at me for talking shit about them.
Right.
But my whole
because
thing,
then you went on and maybe explained your experience of doing it in your most honest way. You told them like how it really happened, and they were like, "Whoa, that's not cool."
I tell
it
everyone. It
doesn't surprise me. The story does not surprise me.
Look, if I said, to you or anyone, if I said, listen, Greg, when you're backing out today, make sure and stop a few feet from the gate, let the gate open for you so you don't clip the gate or mess it. And I told you that 5 times, and then I watch you just back up and smash into the gate, I would say something, but it wouldn't be talking shit. Because that would be on you.
Right.
That's the way I looked at it. I'm reporting what happened. Anymore when a newscaster goes, a volcano went off in Pompeii. Why are you talking shit? It's like, it's what happened. It's what happened. And if you don't want it to happen, then don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that feel soupy
to
you?
No, that's very fair, and it doesn't surprise me that it was probably slightly overproduced and slightly, trying. Hey, this is how we do it. There was always you kind of just had to go rogue and do it your own way, which was the good experience that I had doing that show. Was very quickly I was like, okay, and I think it was lucky because it hadn't been on the air when I started it. There was no template, so I was just like, okay, this is how we're going to do it. Okay, I'm going to come in and watch the clips, and then I'm going to sit down, and then I want a few like an intro written, and then we can kind of riff on other stuff as we come out. We'll ad lib some stuff, but let's treat it like a live show, try and get it all the way through, blah blah blah, and that was liberating because it kind of turned into what fit me. And I think, by the way, some people probably want to go in. The weird thing about having guest hosting is always that it's never a one-size-fits-all thing. The guy coming in maybe after you only can do it if it's on the teleprompter. So it demands a little bit of finesse, and it doesn't sound like you were benefiting from a finessed
No, I also
situation.
had a great story later on when Joel McHale, I think, was hosting The Soup. Was it called The Soup or Talk Soup?
No, I think at that
Soup?
point it was they
Soup.
changed it. Yeah.
I was supposed to be a guest on it because they would have guests.
Yeah.
And Joel's a friend of mine.
Yeah.
And I went down there on Wilshire, the Miracle Mile, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
And I was supposed to show up at 6:30 at night or something. And I showed up, and the security guy was by the elevator. And I said, I got to go up and talk to I'm going to be on The Soup. And he goes, yeah, I can't let you up there. And I go, well, I'm going to be on it. And he goes, I can't let you up there. And I go, well, can you call up there and tell them that their guest has arrived? And he goes, nope. Yeah. And I go, all right, well, then they would expect me to come up. And he goes, yeah, well, I can't let you up. I go, well, call them then. Yeah, I can't do that. I go, well, you got the phone. You got the phone, call up the second floor. He goes, no. I go, okay, well, then I'm going to leave. And he goes, okay. I go, all right. So I just got in my car and started driving back to Hollywood. And about 25 minutes later, Joel McHale called and was like, oh my God, what happened? I can't believe this happened. I go, no hard feelings. The guy just wouldn't let me in. But someone should discuss with that guy that sometimes people show up and that you got to call up because maybe they'd be on the show. So
that guy, ladies and gentlemen, was Greg Kinnear.
Yeah.
And,
Here's what he did.
So stand-up, never wanted to dabble.
So I don't, if I had been more thoughtful, I think when I was kind of out here doing this show where I had a lot of time, I probably, should have done it. But the truth is, terrified. I mean, Toxic was like, it's an empty cavern with a guy standing off camera. I mean, like that was good for me. The idea of an audience was just very difficult. And I didn't come from that background. Even now, I just get a little anxiety, if you get in a big crowd, situation. So I don't think it would have been, funny enough, I ended up taking over, I hosted later, which was Bob Costas's show for like a year before I did that movie. And, NBC put me into that spot at 1:30 in the morning, the famous Tom Snyder spot, and they brought in a live studio audience. So I suddenly went from like Dog Soup, which was like totally cool, I got it, loved the vibe, to suddenly having to come out to an audience of a couple hundred people. And I was all right with it and figured it out, and could manage it okay, but I never was comfortable in it. And I admire it, I really do. And I think, and I regret not having done it because I do think it builds, particularly if you're a young person, you're going to get an entertainment, anything, I don't know, writing, acting, a lot of different things are serviced by the comfort of a crowd, learning the comfort of how to be and perform in front of an audience. That's time on task. It's that 10,000 hours scenario. Mm-hmm. And so I out of fear and laziness, I never climbed that mountain as well as I wished I had. And I think, I think people have, over the years, people ask advice and stuff, and I'm always like, oh yeah, do that, even though I don't really know what I'm talking about.
Well,
Fear and Laziness is Hunter S. Thompson's worst book, by the way. I don't know if people have read it.
Not as acclaimed. So you famously played Bob Crane. We've talked about that. You've also played Bob Kearns, Bob Hope, all the great Bobs.
Yeah.
These are real people. You've played Dr. Bartnovsky in Sight. My personal favorite, you played Dick Vermeil.
Oh,
Invincible.
I forgot about
Is there
Vermeil,
a bigger pressure to play characters or people that have actually existed versus roles that were just created?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like if it's somebody who people, Bob Kearns invented the intermittent windshield wiper. I did not feel a great deal of pressure that people are going to be watching that. It's like, that's not the guy who invented the intermittent windshield wiper.
It's not the Kearns I know.
Somebody more famous and more well-known does come with a little bit of a burden of trying to follow some sense of what the audience might expect or what their expectation is. But, if the production's done well, I mean, there's a little forgiveness in there depending on who you're playing or what. But yeah, I think I don't know. I've enjoyed both, fictional and non-fictional characters, are both kind of great in different ways.
You do, you gave us a little Casey Kasem, but I also hear you do a little Ted Koppel.
Yeah.
And
you want to hear it, Ted?
I just had Brad Williams, comedian, doing Ted Koppel on yesterday's show.
How was it?
He does a good Ted Koppel, but there's a lot of comedy in it. It's not
filthy.
It's not a straight Ted Koppel.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Ted Koppel. This is Nightline tonight, and forgive me for sounding overzealous on this one particular point. Adam Carolla sticks 7 sticks of dynamite and a scoria pickleball racket right up his... I don't know.
No, I got the line for you, which is I don't know why, and I can't do a Ted Koppel, but it made me laugh hysterically in 1987 or something when 2 Live Crew was getting into all their trouble for their nasties we want to be and all this stuff.
Right.
It was kind of a sensation. And he comes on the evening news and he's like, 2 Live Crew was arrested in Dade County today. Of course, famously known for their hit song, Me So Horny.
Famously known for their song, Me So Horny.
Yeah, that works.
I remember I was at my grandparents' house and I was like 21 and I couldn't stop. I was just laughing so hard and nobody knew what I was talking about, but it was him saying Me So Horny. And
the fact is you can do like impersonations of people like Ted Koppel. I don't think people know what Ted Koppel even sounds like anymore. So you really have a wide berth there. If for those you impersonationists out there, bring Ted up on stage and do whatever you do, and the audience will buy it.
I heard you got fired from a job for impersonating your boss in front of him.
That was a waiter job when I was in school, and I was trying to, get a little weekend spending money. I got fired. I was a terrible waiter. Terrible. Start strong, great introduction, just kind of smiles and kind of I was your guy, and then shortly after the deep fried mushrooms weren't arriving and our drinks from 30 minutes ago weren't showing up. They kind of the clarity was coming in for the table that I wasn't good at this. But I did. You know, have you ever had? Do you do impersonations of people?
No.
I'm not like a great impersonationist, but you know, I was like talking to. It was kind of like there was a guy. He was the manager of the place I was working at, and I was kind of doing a impersonation with some of the other wait staff of the manager, and my friend Mike, who was not supposed to throw me under the bus, literally, and I don't think he did it. And by the way,
With
people do this
malice.
all the time. If you kind of do like your own shit version of somebody, and then
Yeah.
you have a friend say, "Hey, do it for him."
Right.
Do it for him.
Right.
And if it's somebody who in any way can help you or is in a position of power or boss, it's not a good scenario. No
Right.
matter how well you
never
do it, it's
flattering.
not good. So
untenable.
suddenly I was like, I don't really do it. And, hey, come on, Greg. Everybody, you know. So I, of course, did my somewhat spot on impersonation of the guy.
I've
Next
heard
to
it
the
is dead nuts on.
next to the Caesar salad trope, and the guy kind of smiled and says, he's chewing gum. He goes, "It's really good, Kinnear. It's really good." And he walked off, and I was like, summarily called into his office and let go 48 hours later. So don't do it. It's a temptation. Resist it. Don't do it.
I got whacked in the face by a woman named Roberta for trying to simulate her voice in a car with her son. And
I don't even understand. Like, I don't understand what you're saying.
any part of
It's the
that.
first time of the whole interview. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about right now. I swear, I felt like I was like, am I having some sort of flashback or
be a
something?
seizure.
Like an acid flashback. I had no idea what you were talking about.
I tried to imitate my friend Monty's mom. I did her voice in the back of her car while she was driving, and she just turned around and whacked me right in the head.
Okay.
So, kids, if you're listening, whether it's trauma in a Volvo or it's getting fired from your waiter gig,
Yeah.
save it.
That's right. Save it.
All right, let me give you a plug. Sight, these guys over at Angel Studios, man, they're knocking it out of the park.
By the way, we started this interview with me kind of giving a half description of the story.
I know.
And then we kind of went on, we went down, the fact that I destroyed America and whatnot. And then I'll just circle back.
You're right. Let's circle
and say
back.
that it is
And
a.
save
Terry,
America.
by the way, Terry Chen plays Ming Wang, and he's excellent in the movie. And it's a story of this immigrant who comes to the U.S. under great, difficulty, ultimately is responsible for a piece of this amniotic, fluid contact lens technology that, helps reduce scarring in people with visually impaired, and kind of it was at the forefront of that. And it's a guy who has a big brain, came here, could have just made a ton of money and have the island wherever he wants to have the island. And instead, I feel like he genuinely has put it back into helping people. And it's quite an amazing story. And, timing is everything. I was, feeling the woes of the lockdown, which I have, was not very pleased at the fact that I, couldn't take my kids to the beach or whatever. Here in California, having your various freedoms
Horrible.
removed,
Yes.
and here was the script that came in with a producer I'd worked with before, and I'm reading it, and as soon as I read this guy's story, it immediately put into perspective my somewhat, my sad sack
Can't go
position.
play pickleball in Malibu today.
Well, I
Boo-hoo.
can't get to the beach, man. It put it right into perspective, and I think the movie is does a nice job of underscoring Ming Wang's story.
The Angel Studio guys just do really stellar work. I was there, and I looked at a lot of their projects, and Cry Freedom, of course. And I'm going to do a stand-up gig for them at their dry bar, which is at their facility
Really?
as well. Yeah, it's a clean stand-up
Wow.
set.
Do you
couple
do
of sets.
clean or does dirty?
I
or what do
don't,
you
but
do?
I'm going to do clean.
So you do a mix.
Yeah, you have to kind of convert.
How do you think I'd have been as a stand-up?
I think you have all
Everything.
Everything you're looking for in a stand-up. Affable, nice looking,
Why don't I
good
do
on
this?
his
Is
feet.
it too late? Am I too late?
No, I think you could do it. I mean, the problem is you're Greg Kinnear now, so they go, tell us some of these stories about,
I don't wanna tell
why'd
them
you destroy the world?
Right. Why did you ruin everything?
You ruined everything.
Tell us that one.
You can do, yes, you would be great at stand-up.
Okay.
You're a good
All right.
storyteller.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
You kind of have to say that.
I
here.
think the clean stuff is just, I never thought about this, but we all have stories, and they're like shit you got into in high school and stuff. And then at some point, you're talking to your kids, and, they go, oh, you start getting into stuff, or don't do this. And then you go, yeah, when I was like 17, I met this girl, and we got friendly. It was nice, but she tried to steal some money. Now, you tell the other stories are completely different. Like, I met this bitch, I fucked her. Bitch tried to steal my money, but it already came, so I don't give a fuck. But you do a version for your kids where you're trying to kind of explain to them certain people in your life or whatever. And so you instinctively clean it up.
Yeah.
Like it's the same story, but you've cleaned it up for your 13-year-old son now or whatever it is. And I think it's kind of the same process. Like, take the jokes that you normally say this way and then pretend like you're telling your special needs son the story.
Who's your favorite comedian?
Well, it's going to be you.
Yeah.
As soon as you hit
I would
the
think
stage.
so. Yeah.
Oh, there's so many good ones.
Oh boy, I do this too when people
I mean,
ask me.
who would I like to, like, when they go, somebody's got a special coming out, you should go watch it. I'd probably go Bill Burr. Like, I would look forward to that. Other people are very skilled and very good, but if you're just going, whose stand-up special would you like to go see?
Yeah.
I'd probably say Bill.
What about you, Greg?
Adam Carolla.
Yes.
How about that?
We're going out
How
on
did
that
I
high
do?
note.
Let's get out of here, huh?
Sight's the name of the film's out as we speak. Greg, anytime you want to come back, I don't expect it's in the cards after
What's gone down there, obviously, this is. I think we can all agree this
maybe
is
your
a sign off.
nephew will come out with like a putter or pitching wedge or something that you want to hawk, and just come back.
Yeah. Hey, good luck with that.
Yeah,
The old. I hope your pickleball game comes.
My
comes
dreams
alive.
are going to come true.
Yeah.
All right, we'll take a break. We'll do the news right after this. Well, doesn't it seem like every week there's a major leak of customer info from phone or healthcare or other companies? That's right. People are getting all your information these days. I mean, they ain't breaking into your home anymore. They're getting your info. Well, that's where Aura comes in. All-in-one online safety solution helps protect your information about you, your family, and it stops it from being sold to data brokers. Data brokers are legally required to remove your personal information if you ask, but they make it difficult and time-consuming. Aura does the work for you. Aura also helps reduce annoying robocalls, telemarketers, and junk mail by sending takedown requests on your behalf. Plus, Aura monitors for identity theft before it happens and scans the dark web for your email addresses, passwords, social security number, and other sensitive information. So protect yourself with Aura, right, Dawson?
For a limited time, Aura is offering our listeners a 14-day trial plus a free check of your data to see if your personal information has been leaked online, all for free, while you visit aura.com/trust. That's aura.com/trust to sign up for a 14-day free trial and start protecting you and your loved ones. aura.com/trust. Certain terms apply. Be sure to check the site for details.
Morgan & Morgan, if you're in an accident, not calling a lawyer means you could be leaving money on the table. If you're ever injured, check out Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm. Over 100 offices nationwide and more than 1,000 lawyers. More than $20 billion recovered for over 500,000 clients. Morgan & Morgan has a proven track record of fighting to get you your full and fair compensation. Writing 6 books, hey, that's me. That's hard. Submitting an injury claim with Morgan & Morgan, well, that's easy. It is Morgan & Morgan. Am I right, Dawson?
If you're ever injured, you can check out Morgan & Morgan. Their fee is free unless they win. For more information, go to forthepeople.com/Adam or dial #law #529 from your cell. That's forthepeople.com/Adam or #law #529 from your cell. This is a paid advertisement. It's time to check Adam's voicemail.
Case man, Grant from North Carolina here. Just got a jury summons from the state of California sent to my parents' house after not being in the state for over 3 years and not having a driver's license or a car registered there anymore. Good old California back at it again. Get it on.
You can leave us a message at 888-634-1744.
All right, we'll do a little bit of news, and then we'll get into some other very interesting subjects. What do you got?
So there's an actor from General Hospital, Johnny Wactor, who was known for playing Brando Corbin in General Hospital. He has been shot while interrupting 3 male suspects who are allegedly attempting to remove a catalytic converter from his vehicle. So,
driving a Toyota, I'll bet.
So what happened?
Toyota's fault.
He also worked at a bar. He was leaving work. It was like
Downtown LA.
Yeah, 3:25 a.m. He was walking with somebody, saw some people at his car. He thought they were towing the car or something was going on. So he goes up there, confronts them. One of the guys is wearing a mask and eventually opened fire on him. He died from the gunshots. Gunshot wounds, yeah.
They're so easy to steal, those catalytic converters. Why was it taking them so long?
Fucking crazy.
Yeah. Well, we got to hear Nithya's, whatever her name's, Raman's speech, because I was breaking it down with Drew earlier today, but there's a nuance to it. And so this is the woman, this is her district, because
Right.
I looked her up. And she's been reelected, by the way. And she's upset at Toyota. We played you the clip, but it's worth breaking it down now that someone's dead for stealing a catalytic converter. This is her. She, by the way, Harvard and MIT.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. This is what they teach you in school. And by the way, this clip, Dawson, I don't know, for some reason it's got like 8 or 10 seconds at the top that we don't really need, but we play it every time. But anyway, go ahead and play it.
The issue, we say, we'll just ban it. We'll just ban it, and that'll be the end of it. Instead of actually thinking about what is going to address this issue in a very real way. In this case, I think one of the things that really infuriates me is that we have a company, Toyota, who makes the Prius, that essentially has a device on their cars, which is super easy to remove. It's basically the value of a MacBook.
All right, just stop it there for a second. All right, this infuriates her, by the way. She's upset at Toyota for manufacturing a car with a catalytic converter that's welded into the center of it and tucked up into the transmission tunnel. She's infuriated, and she's like, it has the value of a MacBook or a laptop. All right, but what if you had a MacBook and a laptop in the trunk of your car, and then somebody popped the trunk and stole it, or busted the back window and stole the backpack that the laptop was in? Would that infuriate you? And then would that be on Toyota for not putting cages around the cars? Like, she's saying this thing's as much as a laptop. Okay, then what if somebody, let's just say there was a diminutive Asian young woman sitting at a cafe working on a laptop, and then somebody ran up and stole the laptop from her? Would that be her fault, or is that Apple's fault? Whose fault? Like, isn't it Apple's fault for making something that's worth something?
That's valuable? Yeah.
And by the way, they didn't even weld the laptop in. That thing's just loose, man.
Loose, yeah.
That's loose.
That's removable.
If somebody puts the laptop on the passenger seat of the car and then somebody breaks into the car, is that Apple's fault, or is that Toyota's fault?
By her logic, it's Apple's fault.
It's Apple's fault.
Yeah.
Okay. And would she be really angry? because she's
She should
angry at Toyota for making something so easy to steal. All you have to do, well, we'll play the rest of the clip because it makes me laugh.
Device on their cars, which is super easy to remove. It's basically the value of a MacBook, right? That is put in a place that is incredibly easy to access in your car.
All right, let's pause for a second. Like, anytime you have to jack up a vehicle and climb underneath the vehicle, that's not incredibly easy to access.
Agreed.
I'd say like a fender-mounted antenna. Maybe a headrest that you could pull out, maybe fuzzy dice, hanging from the rear view, or like maybe even a stereo speaker or something, but welded in the middle of the car, tucked under the car.
You need a special tool.
You need, I've said, Sawzall, 18-volt, by-cutting metal blade, small can of WD-40 is how I roll. That's how I do
Don't
it.
give pointers.
And a kind of the mechanic's jack, like the kind of, God, what is that? Don't use a bottle jack or scissor jack is what I'm saying. All right, so she's angry at Toyota. Now, I don't know if this young actor guy was driving a Toyota, and then what if he was driving a Honda?
Either way, by her logic, the car company has blood on their hands.
All right, so this dipshit is making decisions about how we should live in Los Angeles. That's bad. And the fact that she was reelected, and she sounds like an idiot. She sounds like a complete buffoon. And we'll play it out. This is at the end. She sounds like a 9-year-old giving some sort of a book report about Huck Finn or something. Because listen to her at the end.
Put in a place that is incredibly easy to access in your car, and then the thefts related to this issue have essentially all of the costs of that are given to us to bear instead of them having to manufacture a car that actually is not so easy to be stolen.
But by the way, I don't know what she's talking about. The manufacturer car that turns out not so easy to be stolen. But we're not talking about stealing the car. She sounds like a fucking retarded 9th grader. It's insane. And this is her second. She got revoted back in. And by the way, the LA City Council is 9 more of these fucking yentas. And that's why we're fucked. That's why when COVID comes along, we have world-class minds like this deciding our future. Should the beaches be closed? Yes. How about schools? Okay. How about churches? Yep. How about outdoor dining? Okay. What else should we close? Playgrounds? Yeah, let's do that. Okay, these are the people in charge. How about the SoFi Stadium? It just opened. Now we'll close that too. Yeah, these idiots are in charge, and this is why LA's becoming a dangerous piece of shit of a town, is because we let these idiots. And oh my God, Harvard? When did Harvard fall off a fucking cliff? You know what I mean? It's turned into a clown college in Sarasota, Florida. Like, what the fuck? When did it start delivering all these idiots to us and letting them? It's like unleashing idiots who ruin society with their horrible ideas. All right, so she's angry at Toyota. Toyota's not going to do anything about their catalytic converters because they shouldn't have to do anything any more than they should have to make. Look, the wheels and tires are easier to steal than a catalytic converter. What about that? Is that Toyota's fault? What if they just remove the hatch off the back of the car? Is that something they could resell? Like, where does it end? You're leaving computers in the car? What about your house? My TV is not bolted down. You could actually come into my home and lift it up and remove it. Is that on me? Or is that on LG? Or who is that on, according to this dumb shit?
Yeah.
Oh, God. It's not her, though. It's my mom who votes for these people. She's a strong woman of color. Okay, good. With a 10-cent head. And now we got a dead actor. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Well, by the way, who are these guys? Do they have any descriptions or anything? So I'm trying to do the racially stereotype, and I go, oh, catalytic converter stealing. Yeah, that's Mexican. And then I go, but shot? Now we got to slide into other races here, so I don't know. By the way, the most dangerous people in the world are these people because someone just walks up their car and you go, oh, okay, I'll shoot you dead.
Right.
I think I'm stealing $500 worth of precious metals in your catalytic converter. Ugh. Anyway, I saw this story, so I started tweeting about Nithya Raman. Ugh. It's not her. It's everyone who votes her in, and then once you get a whole bunch of hers, they form a city council, and now we're fucked. That's how it works. All right. But other than that, I got no thought.
Yeah. All right. So, an Ohio real estate investor is planning to take a 2-person submersible down to Titanic-level depths.
I like this guy.
To prove that the journey can be carried out safely, after following the Titan sub implosion last year. So he's just like him, the investor. His name's Larry Connor, and this guy Patrick Leahy, who is the CEO of the Trident submarines. They're both going down just to show everybody, like, look, that was a fluke. That was a poorly made contraption that was controlled by a video game controller. This can actually be done right. Let us show you. They're going to take it down.
Well, I had a realization today as I was thinking about submarines earlier today, and I was thinking back to my young life where I was obsessed with building a submarine and operating a submarine, and how certain kids get obsessed with submarines. And I was a submarine obsessed kid, and I liked it not because I wanted to visit wreckage of the Titanic, but I like the building, the mechanical part of like somehow controlling something underwater.
The periscope,
flipping switches, launching torpedoes. Like it sounded like the coolest thing ever. And then I realized, I think if you got a 7-year-old kid who's like obsessed with submarines, he's got the wrencher gene. That's a mechanical gene. It's a mechanical thing. It's not a love of the water. It's a love of the machinery. There's something that hits on some sort of visceral level about a submarine. I remember as a kid, we were going camping, not my parents, but like the hippie school I was at was going to some camp. There was like a little lake or something. I was trying to build a submarine in the school garage when I was like 9. There was out of like cardboard and plywood scraps and stuff. And I had this whole fantasy about a submarine and building a submarine. I was sort of obsessed with that. And now it's just spilled over into cars and how easily catalytic converters can be removed from Toyotas. But I realize if your kid is into submarines, it's probably early onset wrencher gene. Like that's he's thinking mechanical.
He's not hearing thinking much about marine life or.
No, it's the submarine guys and the daughter who wants to save the whales are two totally different human beings. She's going to work. She's going to go all green on the environment and stuff like that. This guy's going to be doing engineering, like there's a mechanical thing. It is the early onset mechanical engineering gene is submarine obsession.
And you like that these guys are going down?
I do.
Okay. Speaking of the water and the sea, they just did a Jaws reshowing.
I love this.
In Massachusetts.
It's funny. Somebody just issued me a letter that the theater said that we in no way agree with things. So here's my new thing.
Well, let me tell the audience what happened first. So in Massachusetts, they did a reshowing of Jaws, and they had Richard Dreyfuss there for an interview. He walks up in a dress they're playing Taylor Swift's Love Story. He's looking pretty loose. That's the only video you have of it.
He's in a dress?
He walked up like in a dress, and then when he walks up to the front of the stage, he takes off the dress and puts on a jacket and laughs about it. He looks pretty loose. And then there's no more video of this. There's no transcripts. All we have are what the audience is posting online about what happened at this event. Mm-hmm. But according to the interviews with attendees, they said Dreyfuss quickly devolved into a hate-filled speech about women in film, the Me Too movement, LGBTQ rights, and about a third of the audience, hundreds of people, walked out mid-interview.
Good for Richard. So all I read was the statement from the theater that we don't support or condone or agree.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Read that.
Okay, we are. So this is from the theater after hearing the outrage of Richard Dreyfuss's statements. They said, "We are aware of and share serious concerns following the recent event with Richard Dreyfuss prior to his screening of the film Jaws at the Cabot." That's the theater. "The views expressed by Mr. Dreyfuss do not reflect the values of inclusivity."
All right. As soon as I hear "do not reflect the values of inclusivity," I'm like, I don't know what he said, but I agree with all of them. I don't know what he said, but when they talk about our values, first off, you're a fucking movie theater. You have chairs with spring-loaded cushions and seats on them and a projector. You don't have values. You're a building with a projector and a screen and chairs, and you sell popcorn and jujubes. There is no values. So whenever I hear about their values, I always know I agree with the person that offended their values. But keep going, sir.
Okay. And they do not reflect the values of inclusivity and respect that we uphold as an organization. We deeply regret the distress that this has caused to many of our patrons. We are in active dialogue with our patrons about their experience and are committed to learning from this event.
Oh, when I hear learning from the event, I also know I agree with whatever whatever they said.
Some sort of teachable moment.
But this is the whole thing now. When they're like, Harrison Butker, the ladies from the... I'm like, I know I agree with everything this guy just said because you guys are outraged.
Yeah, there's some keywords that just tell you that.
Yes.
So...
Good for... Look, Dreyfuss got FU money. He's old, and he's saying his piece. Good for him. And I'm sure I agree with everything he said.
I have some of the statements that he said for recording users.
Let's do it.
Let's see. At one point, the crowd shouted at Dreyfuss after he said, quote, "It's not okay." He was talking about kids transitioning. Mm-hmm. And he says it's not okay because when the kid's 15, she's going to say, "I'm an octopus." Mm-hmm. And he's against quote 10-year-olds who want to change their gender.
I agree with that.
Yeah, so.
I agree with everything he says. I'm sure. I already know what he said, but I know it offended him. The guy played a marine biologist. I think he can talk about octopi. I found 56 seconds of him walking onto the stage. Well, that was online. Yeah.
Yeah. This is the only footage. It's not really. See, he looks pretty
dancing.
loose. Taylor Swift's playing in the background. Some sort of comedic bit where he walks up.
The audience is cheering. I like it when old guys go nuts.
I played a private party where he sat front row. I played just some acoustic songs, and he was very respectful.
Oh, really?
Nice, and just sit and watch the whole set.
Listen. We're now living in a time, if you talk about not wanting 10-year-olds to transition or wives having important jobs like raising their family and having kids, it's considered heresy now, which is insane. So I know I agree with Dreyfuss and Buckner for that matter. Because all you have to do is have the right people upset. You know what I mean? Like if Chelsea Handler's pissed off, then I'm in. You give me a couple of names. Chelsea Handler will be one of them. A couple of people get outraged by something, I'll always agree with whatever it was that person said. All right. We got a couple of doctors that are planning on coming in.
Doing very important work.
Yeah. Interesting trauma work. And we'll also get into ketamine a little bit because that's something everyone's talking about these days. And we'll talk about PTSD and all that. These guys are on the forefront of all this technology, and we'll talk to Dr. Eugene and Dr. Brian right after this. O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts. They're in the business of keeping your car on the road. They offer friendly, helpful service and the parts, knowledge, and everything else you need to maintain and repair your vehicle. They've got thousands of parts and accessories in stock, either in store or online. You never have to worry if you're in a jam. They got your part. The team at O'Reilly Auto Parts can test your battery for free in or out of your car. It's nice not to have to yank that thing. If it needs to be replaced, they'll help you find the right battery for your vehicle. Need your windshield wipers replaced, brake light fixed, or quick service? They'll help you find the right parts or point you in the nearest local repair shop. so you can have the pros do it. Whether you're a car aficionado or an auto novice, you'll find the employees at O'Reilly Auto Parts are knowledgeable, helpful, and all friendly. The professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts are your one-stop shop for all things auto do-it-yourself. And you can find out what you need in-store or online. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts today, or you can give them a visit, O'ReillyAuto.com/Adam. That's O'ReillyAuto.com/Adam. Just thrive. Life can be overwhelming, and it's not just your mind that suffers. Stress messes with your digestive system and your immune system, too. Just Calm, the breakthrough new stress-busting formula from Just Thrive, exclusive mood-lifting blend, is clinically proven to help you relax and breathe easier in as little as 4 weeks. And I love the award-winning Just Thrive probiotic. I take it every day, and it makes a difference. I love the couple that started this company. They're passionate about their product. I've spoken to them about it. This is a labor of love for them. Just Thrive's a spore-based probiotic with 1,000 times better survivability than most probiotics, banishes bloat and constipation in your gut so you can produce serotonin. That's your happy hormone. Plus, it supports better sleep. I take it. You should take it too. Just Thrive. All, by the way, with a money-back guarantee. Right, Dawson?
Right now, when you go to JustThriveHealth.com and use promo code Adam, you can get 20% off a 90-day bottle of Just Thrive Probiotic and Just Calm. That's like getting a month for free. And a portion of every purchase goes to Vitamin Angels, a nonprofit organization that saves the lives of millions of children and moms-to-be around the world by ensuring they get the vitamins and minerals they need to stay healthy and strong. To learn more about this groundbreaking company, don't miss Adam's interview with Tina Anderson, founder of Just Thrive. Take control today with Just Thrive. Bertram's back. You're welcome, ladies. Here's a sneak preview of the new animated show from Adam Carolla and the Daily Wire.
You do see that I'm an actual black man, right?
Being black doesn't mean you can't be a white supremacist.
Kerpons, being white is the key criteria for white supremacy.
That's very narrow-minded. Saying a black person can't be a white supremacist is like saying a woman can't have a penis. I believe a black man can be anything he wants to be. Politician, athlete, even a racist white woman.
Subscribe now at dailywire.com and tell a friend, Mr. Bertram. Now back to the Adam Carolla Show.
Well, we have Dr. Eugene Lipov, and we also have Dr. Brian Boyle in studio, and we'll talk about trauma and challenges and I guess ketamine as well. Who's the expert in ketamine?
He is.
He is.
That would be me.
Because everyone's talking about it now. Maybe it's a Matthew Perry thing, but also kind of people are talking about microdosing, mushrooms, and talking about all these therapies that didn't really, I don't know, they're pretty fringe or kind of frowned upon, I guess, ayahuasca and things like that. But now people are kind of talking about this in a more sober fashion or something, I guess. And so let's talk ketamine for a second, because I don't know anything about it.
Happy to talk about ketamine. And I think you're bringing up exactly the problem that a lot of people are facing right now. They're hearing so much about this thing in so many different contexts and being used in so many different ways that it's hard to know what's medicine, what's not, what's backed by evidence, what's not. And I think it helps at first to separate ketamine out from some of the newer agents like psilocybin, like MDMA. Ketamine's been around in clinical use for depression, so in the psychiatric field, for longer than some of these newer things. So ketamine has gotten to the point where it's actually very much a widely clinically accepted agent for treating depression that has not responded to other kinds of therapies. Now, it's technically a dissociative anesthetic, and that's how it was actually initially designed back in the 60s and accepted in the 70s as an anesthesia agent. And over the last 20 years or so, it's come to be widely accepted as a treatment for treatment-resistant depression. Psilocybin and MDMA, both very exciting, some interesting emerging evidence, but they're at an earlier point in their evolution toward wide clinical acceptance. Now, ketamine is a really interesting drug. It treats depression incredibly quickly when it works. And we think it does that by essentially telling neurons to form new connections with other neurons. So there's
Now,
something structural
Does it not
happening.
work for certain people?
It doesn't work for everybody, but the response rates with ketamine are so much higher than with that third, fourth, fifth, or heck, 10th antidepressant trial that people with treatment-resistant depression are often facing, that it can be a really good option to consider, and I'll put some numbers on that. So we know from large trial studies and meta-analyses that third, fourth, fifth trial has about a 5 to 15% chance of working. Whereas with ketamine, we're looking at upwards of 70%. So you're getting a good start there. And to increase that even further, you can really drill down and be careful with diagnosis. People who genuinely have a treatment-resistant major depressive disorder are going to be more likely to respond. People who have something else that's masquerading as that might not respond, and we can talk more about that. We can also enhance these response rates even further by offering other therapies that synergize with ketamine. And I'll let Dr. Lipov talk about some of those later, but that's a start.
So in this environment, then, would you go in under a doctor's supervision and be administered ketamine and stay in this, facility, for lack of a better term, or you couldn't get up and go home or take it home with you? It's delivered under a doctor's supervision?
That's right, or at least we feel it really should be. So this gets back to something you were pointing out about what happened with Perry and some of the other stories that have really hit the media and generated a lot of questions. The truth of the matter is ketamine's being offered in many different forms by many different kinds of entities, and some of those do offer take-home therapies. Now, what we really feel at Stella is that we need to be driven by the evidence, by the academic literature. And what that seems to suggest is that there are certain protocols of ketamine delivery that are the most likely to generate a response. And to do so most safely, we need to deliver those in a clinic setting. And so the Perry story is really interesting because it's on everyone's minds, and I like to just address it head on when it comes to ketamine. It's the difference between going into a clinic, getting a precisely monitored dose in a safe setting where if anything goes wrong, it can be attended to, and having a bunch of ketamine at home with no supervision in someone who has a serious history of addiction. And one of those is obviously a really unsafe scenario and led to a really tragic outcome. But it's very different from the kind of in-clinic treatments that we offer.
What percentage, well, first off, how do you get sort of clinically depressed and ones that resist treatment? Like, do you have to have major trauma, or can this be purely chemical, sort of born this way?
You are asking one of the fundamental questions.
Good,
about
I need
depression.
an answer.
Yeah. And I'm going to try to give you at least half an answer. It's not going to satisfy you, but we'll do our best here. The truth of the matter is we don't understand the mechanism of depression. And that's immensely frustrating for patients. It's immensely frustrating for clinicians. We have some hypotheses. There have been some popular models over time. For a long time, we thought it was a low serotonin problem. Mm-hmm. You may have heard phrases like chemical imbalance, medications like serotonin reuptake inhibitors that increase the level of serotonin. There are models that invoke the immune system. There are some models that invoke hormonal axes in the body. The truth of the matter is, Adam, we do not know. What we do know is this. About 40% of the risk of major depressive disorder is hereditary. So there's a strong genetic component. And we think that on top of that genetic vulnerability, exposure to early adverse events, things like trauma, things like dysfunction in the family setting, neglect, that can be that second hit that takes that vulnerability from a latent problem to an active problem. So that's one model for understanding it. So there is certainly a connection between trauma and depression, but frustratingly, it's not just nature, it's not just nurture. It seems to be the interaction of the two.
Are we over, and I'll pose this to both of you. I used to do a show called Loveline. People were always trying to be everyone's getting a prescription for something. I got a 13-year-old. He's hyperactive. I was like, he's a kid. He wants to have fun. I would say there's tape of me saying in 1996, go on a hike and listen to classical music. I'll bet this thing works its way out. But you got to do a lot of hiking. And you got to listen to a lot of classical and do it. And I'll bet you won't need to take your SRIs. And everyone told me I didn't know what I was talking about. But don't you think we're over-prescribing a lot of this stuff?
So how about if let me...
Yes.
Please do, Dr. Lipov. I've been talking too much.
No, please. We are a team. So I do want to talk about depression. My perspective is a little different. Dr. Boyle is a psychiatrist. Mm-hmm. I'm an anesthesiologist, so my view of the world is very different. Mm-hmm. So I look at trauma, which I know a lot about, personal trauma, and I've written a number of articles, books, whatever. But the big thing that people don't talk enough about is norepinephrine. So when somebody has PTSD, their norepinephrine level goes up twice as high in the brain. If you have PTSD, your chance of developing depression is very high. It's about 80% cross. So you were asking what's causing depression. I think part of it is there is definitely genetic. There is also seasonal depression. There is menopausal depression. But in a large part of the population, the amount of trauma that people undergo leads them to be depressed, because if you can't sleep right, that's going to make you depressed. If you're always anxious, it's going to make you depressed. All of that. So to me, at least, if you can treat trauma, a lot of times depression gets better as well. So that's linked. As far as medications-wise, I am very much not for prescribing a lot of medications, because I think you want to have, that's one of the things that ketamine does, and Stella ganglion block does as well, stuff we do, is it reduces the need for medication markedly. Some people can come off medications, or they can modify their meds, because a lot of medication at high doses can give you a lot of set its problems. Then you have to take medications, take care of the problems from the medications. So in that sense, I think ketamine in that space, especially when it's given intravenously. Dr. Boyle is very polite. I'm not as polite. I think taking ketamine at home is just stupid. There's no reason to do that. In my opinion, lozenges, no. So the way we do it, it's administered by professionals, controlled doses, and a lot of times in Stella, we can also do reintegration, meaning not only do you fix the brain, the biological part of the brain, but then you can do reintegration with psychology, which seems to be the best. If you get high at home with ketamine, you're not doing any of that. Plus, you don't know what you're getting a lot of times, especially if it's illicit.
So what would the process be if somebody's going in and say we're going to get a ketamine therapy session? What would that physically look like?
Well, the first part is a careful consultation before getting into any treatment. And by the way, I really agree with a lot of what Dr. Lipov said too. And I'll circle back to that in a moment. But I think just to answer your question, Adam, starts with a careful consultation, because at the end of the day, careful diagnosis drives treatment. Right. And I think that's often overlooked in some contexts. We tend to respond directly to symptoms without really trying to derive an understanding of what the primary fundamental problem is. So it all starts with a careful evaluation. And why I think that's so important is that really I think the problem with this space right now is that patients are faced with a really complicated process for figuring out what's even right for them. TMS, ketamine, psilocybin, MDMA, ECT, it's a complex landscape. And we really try to invert this process by having patients just come to us, tell us what they're suffering with. We help with the diagnostic process, and we understand what the evidence suggests would be the most helpful. And we're also using outcomes data in really sophisticated ways to figure out how to combine these therapies, both at the same time and in sequence, to derive outcomes that are better than any we've ever seen before. So I just wanted to really focus on that consultation piece, because I think that's where it all starts. And with a lot of clinics, I think that gets overlooked sometimes, frankly. Mm-hmm. So once we've decided, okay, you know what, we really think there's a treatment-resistant depressive disorder here. We really think you're a great candidate for ketamine treatment. There are none of the contraindications or reasons why you wouldn't want to do the treatment. We would go ahead and schedule the first session which would look a little something like this. You'd come in, you'd meet with a doctor, like me, for example. We'd talk about anything that might have happened in the interim since the consultation, or if it were a follow-up appointment since your last appointment. Understand everything that might be changing or not changing in terms of symptoms. Allow that to guide decisions about dosing and whether there might even need to be some consultation with other members of the care team to advise on things like medication changes or what to focus on in psychotherapy. And then we'd go ahead and start the treatment. And what that would look like is the placement of an intravenous line and a 40-minute infusion of a weight-based dose of ketamine. During that 40-minute process, you would gradually experience the onset of what we call dissociation, which is often described as a kind of dreamlike or out-of-body state. Usually very well tolerated, but we do a lot of preparatory work with patients so that they understand what they're about to go through. Because if they haven't been through that before, you can imagine that can be a little scary. So we try to set the tone and create a safe space for people to really experience this in a way that's calming, that's maybe even interesting in terms of the kinds of insights that might be generated. And by the time you leave the clinic, which is usually between an hour and a half and 2 hours later after the beginning of this 40-minute infusion, you'll feel back to yourself. This is not an experience that lasts all day, let alone multiple days. This is a contained experience, and I think that's really another thing that's important about the delivery modality. Because when it comes to things like lozenges, for example, that could be a multi-hour experience. Mm-hmm. So again, this is an intravenous infusion protocol driven by the literature.
Let me add one thing. Yeah. I'm an anesthesiologist, right? So ketamine is, I used to use that clinically before it became popular for depression. The great thing about IV ketamine, you can give more or less.
Right.
A lot of clinics do IM, which is get a shot in the butt and hope. You can't take it out.
Right, once it's in.
Right, so that's why if you're going to do ketamine, in my opinion, the best ketamine is IV, supervised by an appropriate physician, and then you go, hey, I don't feel anything. All right, crank it up. I was like, wait, this is too much for me, crank it down. So I think that's a big part of difference as opposed to intranasal, lozenges, whatever, IM, and I think that's what makes it really safe and the best outcomes for you.
What do you make of all, I'm in Hollywood, so everyone's like, you got to go on one of those ayahuasca retreats. And I go, what are we doing? And they go, you got a lot of stuff. You got to get it out.
You got some demons.
I got some demons. And I go,
you got to unpack it.
I got to unpack my demons. And I'm like, first off, you want to be part of that? And then I got to shit myself. And then I got to unpack my demons. And then everyone goes, yeah, I mean, look at you, whatever. And it's so funny. I don't know why Jay Leno's name came up before, but I see Jay Leno. He's at his shop. He's messing around with his cars. And I go, hey, Jay, how you doing? He's telling me about his car. And he goes home. And not everyone is filled with demons.
He doesn't need to purge.
He doesn't need to purge anything. But Jay, anyone said, hey, Jay, you got to go to this ayahuasca retreat in Brazil because there's so many demons in you. He wouldn't know what that was. And I wonder how much of this, now, I'm not talking about your clinic. I'm saying, like, it seems like we're on some sort of narcissistic wild ride where everyone has to examine everything. And I just say to everyone, hike, get engaged, get something you're into, find a hobby, find something you really, that's distracting, that you're not thinking about yourself all the time. You're engaged in something. Go build a treehouse with your kid this weekend and enjoy the nature and listen to some classical music and stop turning in and trying to figure. And I talked to my kids, they're in high school. I said, what percentage of all these kids that you go to high school with are on something? They go, they're all on a prescription because they've all been diagnosed with. Once we opened up this spectrum bullshit where it's like, come on now, you have Asperger's. I do not. You're on the spectrum, though. You got to admit that. Oh, okay, where's the medication? Then it's not healthy. It's insane. It's the environment. It's the meals. It's the food. It's the culture. It's like it's the music is shit. Like everything's pummeling these kids. They're on the internet. They're reading stories about themselves. You know, we're heading off a cliff, like is what I'm saying. And I'm just back to diet and exercise. I don't like Weight Watchers fudge bars. I'm just like eat right, move, and sweat, and we'll see if that weight doesn't come off. And I have a kind of same approach not for people that have been deeply injured psychologically, but like just your basic sort of self-indulged American who thinks they have something they don't have.
So one of the things I'd like to clarify, so ayahuasca is one specific stuff.
Right.
I think that's particularly hard. Sometimes the trips could be very difficult.
Yes.
I think pretty much everybody throws up, and I think you have to be very careful who you let inside your head.
Yes.
Right. And so psilocybin, for example, has been used for various trips for 2,000-3,000 years. It's a safe drug compared to everything else out there. Like, we're talking about ayahuasca and other stuff. I think psilocybin is pretty good now. Microdosing, everybody's getting into it right now. But I think there is some really good science behind it, and there's some safety. So before anybody does any kind of psychedelic, I think you need to understand risks and benefits. So diagnosis, I think, is key, as Dr. Boyle said. But I think nature, being engaged, doing physical exercise, if you're going to sit in front of a computer all day long playing video games, it ain't so good for you. And you have to take heavy amount of caffeine to drink. You can't even leave the game because you have to pee in a catheter.
Yeah.
That's not a lifestyle. That's just idiotic.
No, my thing is get into the ocean. I don't know anyone who spends any time at the ocean, at the beach, like diving through a wave. Those people seem to be wired completely differently than everyone else.
I don't know. Let me just disagree a little
I don't
bit
like surfers, don't get me wrong.
No, I'm talking about
I
surfers.
believe they're ne'er-do-wells.
But I'm talking about, for example, SEALs, right? They dive plenty.
Oh, well, Navy SEALs.
Right, Navy
Yeah,
SEALs.
Sure.
They get, I don't treat animals.
Well, they
SEALs.
got to hang off the side of
Right.
container
point is there are
ships from
exceptions.
Caracas. Yeah. I've interviewed a lot. I've interviewed a lot of Navy SEALs who, although they've seen it all and been through trauma that would be probably much more damaging if they weren't them and if they didn't have their training and their
Totally true.
whatever they have. And it's a self-selecting group, too, because you don't pull people out of their bunks and tell them they have to be a Navy SEAL. You pursue it. So it's a self-selecting,
Right.
group. But yeah, I'm just saying I feel like we're living in a really self-indulgent time when everyone is explaining to you what's wrong with them. And I find myself saying to people all the time, I think you're fine. You're fine. And if it's not, by the way, it used to be their back. They would always tell you, here, okay, can you pick me up from the airport? When I was growing up, no, my back. Now it's my head. Like I'm just too screwed up to do things, have a relationship or act decently.
Tomorrow will be both.
Yeah,
And
tomorrow
I
will be
wanna-
back and head.
I want to speak to this because I think you're getting at something very real. I know I sense it too. And, I think I'll put this in a way that I think captures it. I think there's always a healthy tension as a society trying to figure out to what extent the world should respond to each of us and to what extent each of us should adapt to the world.
Yes.
My feeling is that right now there is a collective sense that perhaps that pendulum has swung a little bit too far in one direction. So
But
while
the
I
world
think,
needs to sort of bend for,
I think that's
for
right.
my will.
I think that's right. And so when you said that, that really resonated with me. It's something that I've been observing, and it's something that I think we really need to help patients understand and where to draw that line.
We're at the point where the person behind the desk at the American Airlines kiosk at the airport is telling a woman, you missed your flight because the door shut a half hour ago, and the person is screaming at them, no. And then the person's going, I don't make the rules. They shut the door. You got to catch the next flight. And the person starts physically trying to attack them because someone is telling me something I don't want to hear, even though it's my fault for sleeping in and not getting to the airport in time. This seems to be happening at an epidemic level.
And I think we need to be careful here about what we as a field of psychiatry really wrap our arms around. Because I think there's really a difference between psychiatric illness, especially severe treatment-resistant psychiatric illness, and just bad behavior. And I think part of the challenge here is that in psychiatry, we don't understand on a mechanistic level where our illnesses are coming from that we're treating. Now, I'll use a car example because I'm a car guy and I know you're a car guy. When there's a problem with your car, I'll use an example near dear to my heart. I drove an old 997 that had the old M97 engines that had bore scoring. And sure enough...
Porsche guy.
Yeah, that's right. We could go down that road, but I'll try to stay focused. Well, now I've got to cater them, but I had to go a little more hardcore. But anyway, so not to get distracted by cars, although I know we could. Where there's bore scoring, you diagnose the issue. What's the problem? Well, your cylinders, they ain't round anymore. And so what do? You got to do? You got to go reline your cylinders, send it off to Canada, send it back, and rebuild the whole engine. Okay, you've diagnosed a problem, and the fix responds to that diagnosis exactly. The problem in psychiatry is that, unlike in a lot of other fields of medicine, we actually don't understand the underlying biological mechanism crisply enough to find treatments that exactly target it. Now, we have hypotheses, we have a lot of data, and it's not that we're not doing the science, but it turns out that these problems are probably just really complex and exist on the level of systems of circuits in the brain that are really hard to pin down. So what does that mean? Well, we end up diagnosing things based on subjective phenomena, and that makes it tough. And we have to humbly acknowledge that our categories aren't perfect, that these diagnoses aren't perfect. And I think it's that complexity that makes it so clear that we need to have a multimodal approach to treatment. In other words, if depression ain't getting better, it might not just be because this depression is a particularly tough to treat depression. It might be that it's depression plus PTSD. It might be that it's depression plus an anxiety disorder. And so that's why I think having a full armamentarium of choices driven by data and driven by outcomes data that are further helping us sort out who responds to what, I think that's going to take us to the next generation of psychiatry. And I think it's going to help avoid falling into this trap where we're treating bad behavior as an illness, because those are two different things.
What percentage of people who have depression is untreatable depression? Do we know that?
It depends on how you slice it and how you define untreatable depression, but it really could be upwards of 20% to 30%. So it's a huge chunk of depression. And depression itself, we're looking at a lifetime incidence rate of 15% in the population. So you do those numbers, that's a ton of people who are suffering with TRD. The reason I say it's hard to define is that I think the status quo that we currently have as far as what's an acceptable degree of treatment is not good enough. In other words, I think we need to have a higher standard of what constitutes adequately treated depression. I think we're settling right now.
Are we going to, sorry, but we'll turn it back to you. Something stuck in my head. I was talking to Dr. Drew about this once, about after a very traumatic event, like a school shooting, you have a limited window to get to those kids before it sets in and sort of the cement dries in their head. In other words, like first off, and you can tell me if this is a flawed notion or not, but you got to get hold of them and get the counselors and get the whatever on the scene, because if you say come back next week, the trauma the post-traumatic stress is set in. And then I guess now we're going to sadly have groups, because we'll be able to follow those kids whose third grade class was shot up and the neighbor's class was shot up. There's enough, just something like school shootings where you go, okay, well, everybody in that school should be sort of equally impacted. Some saw more than others. But then you take that group and you go, okay, that was 10 years ago. How many of these people are clinically depressed? Why is this one kid have it so badly and the next kid didn't seem to be affected by it? But that seems like an interesting place to start.
Yeah, I can give you an answer to a lot of that, actually. So first of all, with all due respect, as far as untreatable depression of 20%, I think you're understating what can be done. So it depends what you use, right? If you do ketamine, if you do TMS, sometimes deep brain stimulators, you can push that number much smaller.
Oh, I think you may have misunderstood me. I meant just looking at the population who's suffering with
I get it.
Undertreated
but my
depression.
Point is
I agree with you.
Untreatable depression, undertreat's two different things. My point is a lot of things can be treated. But as far as long-term trauma effect, that I've actually written papers on that. So the current way of thinking is something called epigenetics, where you can transmit DNA change 2 or 3 generations. Mm-hmm. So if, let's say, there are 10 kids, third grade, whatever grade. Let's say half of those guys had traumatized parents, and now you expose them to severe trauma, their chance of developing PTSD is much higher, for sure. Even though they saw exactly the same thing. Now, as far as how long does it take to set, I don't know that literature, but I know it takes about 30 days to change the brain.
Oh, really?
So the counseling intervention, I don't know those studies. But I do know I have treated people who had severe PTSD 50, 60 years successfully using Stella ganglion block. So the length of time, how long people have had it, doesn't seem to matter. I took care of my kid when he was 10. He had PTSD fairly severely. So those kind of groups of people are some of the subpopulations I'm interested in looking at, because a lot of times people go, well, you know, they were injured, they were so young, now it's going to be like that forever. I don't think it's a life sentence. My point is, with modern technique, especially stuff we do in Stella Center, you can actually treat it. We've treated people like that. I've treated a young lady. She was not a kid, but she was working in Seattle, Nordstrom. Somebody came in, shot 10 people. She was the only one survived.
Only one?
She was the last one.
Wow.
People bled on her as she was dying, as they were dying. Horrible.
Right.
So we treated her successfully, I think 5-6 years after trauma. So the point is, to me, PTSD is treatable. It's not a lifestyle. That's why I'm trying to change the name PTSD to post-traumatic stress injury. It's a biological change. It's not a lifestyle. You can change it and reverse it.
Right. And so with like ketamine, when you're in that state for your 40 minutes or so, is there any talk therapy going on or visualization going on or things of that nature? Are you literally just going into this state and being left alone with your thoughts?
It's a great question. And really, it depends. In different clinical settings, clinicians approach this in different ways. From my experience, having done thousands of ketamine treatments over many years, what I've come to appreciate is that doing therapy in the midst of the treatment session itself can be very challenging. And I should say also, I'm very much a psychotherapist at heart. I really love doing therapy. I think the integrative therapy that we offer alongside these treatments is critical, because what you're doing is essentially creating a malleable blank canvas, to mix artistic metaphors, that you can really use to achieve something that maybe without that biological intervention you wouldn't be able to. So we call this the window of healing. Back to your question, we find that it's most helpful to do that integrative therapy work, not necessarily in session, but just after it.
Just after it, like the next day or half hour
Maybe later that day or the next day. But you're still within that window in which those circuits are growing, new connections to other circuits. There's something happening on a structural, neurobiological level that we can then synergize with on the psychological level. There's an opening up of possibility. There's flexibility where before there might have been rigidity and the kinds of negative thought patterns and pathways that can become so entrenched in people with depression.
What are they doing CAT scans and functional MRI and that kind of stuff as it pertains to ketamine? I remember Dr. Drew was telling me, I think he was telling me about doing functional MRI stuff a million years ago, but just parts of your brain that would light up when you show that person a picture of a puppy dog and stuff like that, or pornography or whatever. Maybe that was tumescence monitor, or maybe getting this mixed up. But either way, are they doing things, studying the brain that way as it pertains to ketamine?
Yeah, absolutely. There's some interesting functional MRI stuff being done even more broadly in the interventional psychiatry realm, especially with TMS. They've probably led the way in terms of the functional MRI studies, and we can talk more about transcranial magnetic stimulation if that's interesting to you. But yes, there's interesting stuff being done also with EEG studies, so looking at actual electrical waves in the brain. We were just doing a study at McLean Hospital where I've been on faculty for some years, actually looking at just that, looking at EEG waves in the brain, both just before and just after intravenous ketamine infusions. And what it looks like from our preliminary data is that it really does change signaling. It really does change brain patterns.
And who would be a candidate for this? Like if you're sitting around, because I think a lot of the time when people are talking about therapies or even inserts for your shoes. Like you sit and you watch it and you go, that could be more comfortable on my next walk, or I don't know if do I need that? Or is it fall under the heading of, well, it's not going to hurt, or does it fall under the heading of, you're just not a good candidate for this because you're Jay Leno and you seem pretty happy with your Duesenberg. I don't think you need this.
Duesenberg therapy is pretty powerful.
Yeah.
And, those are beautiful.
No
cars.
Porsches. He doesn't have any Porsches, by the way.
Hey,
it's sad. Oh, wait, he does. He has a GT, the Spider one, the thing, what's his name?
The Carrera GT.
The Carrera GT.
He's got the V10 one.
He's got the V10.
He's got my dream car.
He's got your dream car's about 4 miles from here, probably. But, so like if people are listening and they're going, is it a situation where you go, look, I don't care how put together you are mentally, you could always do better. I mean, does it fall under that heading, or is it I really feel burdened and I've seen a lot of horrible stuff and I really need some help?
That's a great question, and one with a pretty clear answer, which is that we are using these treatments to treat true psychiatric illness with severe symptomatology that's not getting better with the normal raft of treatments. Now, that's not to say that there isn't value in the use of some of these agents, in particular some of the true psychedelic agents like psilocybin, for example, in opening up the possibility for really interesting psychodynamic work. In other words, there is going to be a gradually clearer separation in this broad field we're talking about today between using rigorous, evidence-based, outcomes-driven, data-driven treatments to treat severe psychiatric illness on the one hand, and then on the other hand, taking people who are actually generally pretty healthy and offering them something that might help them unlock even more. Those are two different things. Each has its place, but what we're doing is firmly grounded in the treatment of illness.
So I'd like to add to that. I used to be a trauma surgeon, so I have a simpleton perspective.
I could never do that.
That was exciting, but it's a great place to be from. So the answer I would give to that is, what are the symptoms, right? If you can't sleep, if you cannot get out of bed, if you cannot function the way you choose to function, if you have sexual dysfunction, by the way, 85% of men with PTSD have sexual dysfunction. If you have any of those very basic symptoms, what Dr. Boyle said is exactly right. But my point is, if somebody just listened and said, there are a couple of things. Number one, if you have no hope, those are people who commit suicide. So I think you need to remember that there are some new modalities available that are effective rapidly. It's not a lifestyle.
Right.
I think that's a key takeaway, number one. Number two, what are the symptoms? If you're doing great and occasionally feel a little blue, what kind of treatment do you need? Right? If you have a pebble inside your shoe, take the pebble out.
Right.
Simple. But if you cannot walk as far as you want, then you start to think about changing the shoes, right? The same thing. If you can't sleep, everybody tells you you're depressed, you're not doing anything, you can't get out of bed, you're not doing anything. I think those are the type of people should seek care as quickly as possible. That's key.
Does this have a application? I know you work with the military, Ryan.
Pretty much.
And that's a big thing is PTSD. And, that's no joke. I mean, that's not, I didn't get, I wanted the Mercedes convertible one for my 16th birthday, but I got the hard top.
Oh, the horror.
Yeah, well, that's my daughter. That's my daughter. But
that explains a lot.
Yeah, she thinks she was traumatized, but this is real trauma.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing what you guys are doing is going to sort of make its way into the protocol at some point.
In the military?
Yeah.
It's already
already
a lot
there.
of it. So I have had the honor to work a lot with Fort Bragg, or Fort Freedom currently called. So it was interesting, I spent a lot of time with Green Berets and Delta Force and people like that. Not as much as with SEALs, but also pretty much all the special forces. And it was interesting, so I did a 4-day experience, special force experience. We got to blow off doors, breaching, 50 cal guns, amazing, best time. So blow up this door, and my head was swimming. So I go to the instructor. I said, my head is swimming. He said, such a wuss. It's cold, eating a charge. That was just gunpowder.
Right.
We use C4. We take down doors.
Right.
So a normal person just would go whine and stop, right? I go write a paper about it. So it turns out when you combine ketamine and stellate, or what we call now DSR, dual sympathetic reset was a little better version of it, it seems to be synergistic. And pretty much, I don't think you can finish being special forces training and not have BTBI, which is blast traumatic brain injury. So ketamine
from literally just using the explosives.
Correct.
The concussive.
Right, because what it does, it takes the brain and shakes it. It's like Jello.
Yeah. Well, they're starting to find out that, soccer,
Same thing. Well, it's not BTBI.
Yeah, I'm just saying that there's rattling around your brain inside of the walnut shell is turns out not good for people at all. And
no, but the point though is ketamine can grow brain tissue back. That's been shown in fMRIs and experimentally on rats and stuff like that. So that's really cool. So the point is, if somebody had multiple hits to the head, whatever, and you do ketamine and they're depressed, not only you fixing part of the way I see it, and again, I have a very simpleton perspective of it. So what it does, ketamine increases functional prefrontal cortex. That reminds you not to pee on your shoes. It's very basic.
Right.
That controls the amygdala and the rest of the insular cortex, things like that. So the point is, as you grow those nerves, you're actually getting some of your brain back, which is really important, right?
Where do we send people if they want to learn more about this? Should we go to Stella Center?
StellaCenter.com is our
That's right.
main website. And we are in a lot of cities in U.S., and our nurse practitioners, psychiatric nurse practitioners are great at doing assessments. And they can make a decision what to do.
I imagine this is going to, expand and grow as the science, and there's I think as people get more informed about it as well.
That and the response, right? It's all about response
results, right?
It's all about the response
That's
rate.
what it's all about. That's why we do this.
So StellaCenter.com.
Yes, sir.
That's right.
Is where you go. Doctors, thanks so much for coming in and sharing your expertise.
Thank you.
It's our pleasure. Thanks so much for having us.
Sure. Greg Kinnear, Sights, name of his movie, is out as we speak. I'm going to be doing stand-up tomorrow at Jimmy Kimmel's Club in Las Vegas, a couple shows, and then off to Timonium. That's right. I may be traumatized in Timonium. Outside of Baltimore, Magooby's Joke House, doing a couple of shows there Friday, a couple of shows Saturday, and until next time, this is Adam Crowford, Dr. Eugene and Dr. Brian and Greg Kinnear and Chris saying, Mahala.